Hey guys. Here is part 4 of What If Naruto Was Orochimaru's Target. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start.
We are paid, that's all. We are God.
Chapter 17, Cutie, Quality Time. Jiraiya marched at a deliberate pace. He didn't even pay much attention to the destruction that surrounded him. Walls of stone overtaken by glacial constructs. Fires as hot as the sun danced about, never managing to truly ignite the trees they were at the base of. Even an assortment of steel weapons lay about. It was a mess. Or, more accurately, it was a war. A war of one boy against himself. When Naruto first proposed this training method, Jiraiya thought he was merely being philosophical. How else does one understand the question? Can you beat a better version of yourself? He simply didn't give it any more thought until he saw his godson fighting a Sage Mode shadow clone. He lost it, lectured the boy about his careless stupidity and arrogance. Sage Mode was his trump card for a reason. Even an imperfect version provided such a massive increase in abilities, awareness, stamina, and durability that what Naruto was attempting was suicidal. Can you beat a better version of yourself? Was his only reply, and the Toad Sage wondered if the boy had been knocked around too much, or completely gone around the bend. Until the Sannin really considered the conundrum. At that point, Naruto was amassing a great deal of skill and power. His body was maturing, his chakra manipulation was expanding and refining even more than they had been. Jiraiya doubted he'd find too many people that could simply outpower the Uzumaki Jinchuriki. But strength isn't everything. Rely too much on it, and you'll be at a loss for when it fails you, when it turns out not to be enough. By fighting a categorically better version of himself, Naruto couldn't simply rely on his advantages. He had to get creative, use cunning and misdirection. He had to fight like a ninja. That level of consideration surprised Jiraiya. He knew his godson wasn't stupid, far from it, but he often ignored the similarities between Hiruzen and red-haired Container. He'd also never voiced the comparison. Improved he may have been, Naruto was still an Uzumaki, and they were volatile people. I almost had him, pervy sage, Naruto said between breaths. Jiraiya rolled his eyes as he picked his godson up and put him over his shoulder. Yeah, you did. But what happens if you actually manage to beat the clone? Weep, for I will have no more lands to conquer, obviously. Yes, quite obvious. Let's see how smart that mouth is when Shizen sees you, Jiraiya said. What? You're taking me home. I don't need a hospital. Don't be a dick. I could just take you home, but it'd cost you. Are you blackmailing me? Naruto asked in disbelief. Jiraiya laughed as he moved through the training grounds. Yes. Whatever leverage you have ends in like 20 minutes, Naruto pointed out. He was going to recover fast, and the clone hadn't hurt him that bad. The only threat Jiraiya had was Shizen and Saito-san's reaction when Naruto walked him into the hospital. But he could endure that and then kick Jiraiya's ass later. Hell, he could just heal now, but Kurama requested he not be bothered with petty nonsense from his idiot Container. You're right, but there is one thing you haven't considered. Everyone will think I did this to you. Almost no one knows that's laughable, so they'll write it off. If I tell Shizen you did this to yourself, she'll throw an absolute fit and won't let you leave for the rest of the day. I can freaking teleport. And have your surrogate sister worry? Nope. That's your weakness, kiddo, and I'm exploiting it for my own gain. I hope it's worth the ass-kicking you're going to get for this later to bail. Now, no need for hard words. I just told Tsunade that Orochi and you would join us for dinner is all. And of course, she couldn't pass up seeing the two lovebirds in the wild. Are you scamming a double date off me? Naruto asked in further disbelief. By hook or by crook. Fine, I'll ask Orochi-chan, but you better be glad you're actually not a shit godfather or sensei. If you hadn't really trained me, I'd let your ass twist in the wind. An hour later, Naruto arrived at Orochimaru's, wanting to leave enough time to convince her should it be required. 2 short knocks, and he was greeted with the visage his girlfriend in a scarlet robe. Wordlessly, she led the Uzumaki to her kitchen, where she'd been enjoying some tea and a quiet morning. Kabuto was already at the hospital, leaving her to bask in her solitude, not that she minded seeing her maelstrom. Naruto took a seat as Orochimaru retrieved another cup. What brings you by so early, Naruto-kun? Oh, I would love to say I was guided by nothing but the spirit of romance, but I am here to request a favor. A favor? Orochimaru asked, pouring tea into the cup. Yup. I saw favor as you may be inclined to say no, but I am hoping my being in your debt will entice you to my cause. I am certainly intrigued, she said, leaving the cup on the counter and swaying seductively. Reaching his seat, she straddles her lover, yellow eyes looking intently. And for this favor I can ask you anything I want in return? His nod brings a smile to her lips, and she gently starts to grind into him. She'd likely had done whatever he was going to ask, but the timing was perfect. They'd been together for a little over a month now, and while some may think this next step was a bit fast, it was always going to happen. That he wouldn't be in a position to refuse her made it all the better. Naruto was lost in the sensation, briefly forgetting why he was there in the first place. He got over the short-term loss of his executive function, but it almost slipped again when he felt her nibble his ear. He resolved himself to stay focused and not do what it is he really wanted to and what her kitchen table looked sturdy enough to handle. Jiraiya wants us to go to dinner with him tonight, so Tsunade-Albakan will. Kukuku, is that all? She asked, increasing the pace of her grinding. And you have to be nice. So that's the real favor. Naruto chuckled. Yeah. Orochimaru pulled back and looked into Naruto's eyes. Fine, I will go to dinner and be halfway decent to that miserable toad. And since I have agreed, you wouldn't mind me cashing in right now, would you? No, Naruto said, proud he'd kept his voice from quivering. He felt her grab his hand, that had been resting on her thigh. She intertwined her hand into his, a sinister smile on her face. Naruto watched as a small white snake wrapped around his wrist. He looked into her eyes, his confusion evident. Her smile only widened. Manda wants to talk to you, was the last thing he heard before he felt the pull of a being summoned. Once the smoke cleared, Naruto found himself dumbfounded and half-erect, being glared at by a purple people-eater. Oh, she's getting it so hard when I get back, was Naruto's thought, determined to really test the strength of her bed frame. Realizing the large snake wasn't going to say anything, Naruto concluded he had to initiate things. Sup? Kakashi stood perfectly still in front of the memorial stone. It was early yet, and with his team departed on an escort mission, he had a lot of time to himself. Some assumed he came to this stone to ruminate over his past, or even excoriate himself in an attempt to alleviate his survivor's guilt. For a while, that had been exactly why he spent so much time in front of the tribute to the fallen. But not anymore, and not for several years. With all humility, Kakashi knew he was the premier ninja of Konoha during the time the Sannin had left. He found it oddly fitting, but not for any laudatory reasons. Like the village, Kakashi had lost his way after Minato-sensei's death. He sank into duty, while not fulfilling his true duty, to what remained of his sensei's legacy. By the time he pulled himself together, the Sandaime forbade him to be directly involved in Naruto's life. So he watched, doing what little he could while acting as a silent guardian. He watched as the young boy developed, and was filled with a greater sense of pride than anything before. He saw him fight through the hate and isolation, staying focused on a goal. When Kakashi summoned Pakken in front of a 7-year-old Naruto, he'd hoped the boy would try. He'd done the hand signs slowly while calling them out for that exact purpose. He assumed Naruto would be aligned with the toads and they'd take care of him. Not a perfect plan, but it worked, and Naruto got a measure of happiness because of his connection to the Panthers. As Kakashi read over the names of the fallen, he would often contemplate Konoha, as a symbol, a location, and a people. Danzo fetishized the location, he cared little for the people and did not believe in the will of fire. The Sandaime fetishized the people, overlooking their faults while basking in their praise. He had no doubts that Minato-sensei sacrificed everything for all three. Kakashi didn't know if he felt the same. He'd seen these people disregard his sensei while having the temerity to praise him. It was galling. Deep in thought, Kakashi-kun? Asked an aged voice from behind. No more than usual, Sandaime-sama. Uncover any great truths? I tried, but they seem to elude me. I understand, my boy. I understand. Change is the only constant, and yet even the nature of change is in flux. Just 3 years ago, if I requested a ninja's audience, I received it without question. Now, they feel free to ignore me or come at their leisure. It's somewhat jarring to grow accustomed to. Hiruzen moved toward Kakashi, standing right beside him as he finished. I have been very busy, Sandaime-sama. Yes, I see, the former Hokage observed, dryly. I do not blame you for not wishing to be in my presence. I strained our relationship, or more accurately, your trust in me. I regret it, Kakashi. I regret a lot of things, and I fear I will never be able to truly make amends. You owe me nothing, Sandaime-sama, Kakashi said. It wasn't the truth, but the Hatake didn't want to be on the man's apology tour. He abused his authority, and there was nothing to be said beyond that. At the very least, I owe you an apology. I am sorry for a great many things, but keeping you away from Naruto was a mistake. I see it now more than ever. Ah, Kakashi thought. It always led back to Orochimaru. By keeping you and others away from Naruto, by alienating him, I left him vulnerable to Orochimaru's machinations. Support, acknowledgement, family, and even the chance at love. She's offered all of it to him, and of course, he wouldn't turn it down. Maybe she's sincere, Kakashi observed. Doubtful. She may have a fully matured Sharingan implant, hiding it under an advanced contact lens. Who's to say she won't try to release the Kyuubi from Naruto or control him in some way? There has only been one report and one legend of a single Uchiha controlling the Kyuubi. Yes, Madara. The man alleged to be behind Minato and Kushina's death. I have it on good authority that man is likely dead and has been for 3 years now. He would be who Orochimaru got the Sharingan from. Why are you telling me this now? And does Tsunade-sama know? Because I had another plan in the works, but I am considering abandoning it. It's likely she's aware of it anyway. I've been 5 steps behind her since well before her return. I fear for Naruto's safety and didn't think Jiraiya would allow him to enter a relationship with her. From my understanding, Jiraiya-sama doesn't allow Naruto to do anything. Unfortunate, but you appear to be correct. This is why I need you, Kakashi. You aren't completely disinterested but are removed enough to have a different perspective. My perspective is you should leave it alone. Naruto can protect himself, and if not, he has us. Why do you all assume that if she's planning something you'll have time to react? Or Naruto will even be whole for a rescue to be possible? He knew his former grandson was strong. Watching the young man train Tsunade was evidence enough. But Orochimaru was different, and could not be underestimated. Have you tried foregoing the games and just speaking directly and plainly to Naruto? Sure, he might tell you to stuff it, but he's not a petulant child. He won't let his feelings outweigh sound advice. If that doesn't work and you're sure she's a threat to Naruto and subsequently the village, then flip a coin and kill one of them. That's not funny, Kakashi. I'm not joking. If you truly believe she's a threat, if there is nothing else motivating you, then neutralize the threat. Sometimes the most heroic thing you can do will appear villainous. Remember when you told me that? I do. Because the village came before everything. Not even my loyalty to Minato-sensei was an excuse to jeopardize it, risk conflict with Kyumo or Iwa. It was for the village. Just know, wherever you land on that, I'll be on Naruto's side. I've been manipulated by you enough for a lifetime. Ja-eni, Kakashi said before disappearing via Shunshin. So the guy says? Lady, that's not a soap dispenser. Naruto finished and watched as Manda laughed. The two had been breaking the ice. Naruto was glad the snake wasn't as nakedly hostile as the stories made it appear. Even if Gamabunta considered him something of a savage, he respected his power. Alright, boy, I'm sure you know why you're here. Seeing if I'm worthy of Orochi-chan? Yes. I won't let what happened with Hiruzen happen again. He threw her away like a used whore just to save face. I need to know your intentions, Naruto. Naruto felt flushed and embarrassed at the question. He knew his intentions, he had a plan, but just confessing to her giant snake daddy felt weird. And uncool. And awkward. But he couldn't allow his reluctance to be read as dishonesty, so Naruto answered. I care about her, Manda-sama. I don't know what the future entails, but whatever it is, I'd like to have her in my life. She's precious. Ugh, so lame. To me, and I only want the best for her. Alright, kid. Geez, didn't Bagheera teach you to keep a tighter rein on your emotions? The snake boss asked. Naruto had to fight down his annoyance, wondering if he were simply being trolled. I won't be eating you today, but I will keep watch. You start to look like that old monkey and you'll deal with me. I am nothing like the old man, believe it. We shall see. But as of now, you have my blessing to court Orochi-chan properly. But if you ever have kids, they have to be snake summoners, not toad. Wah. Okay. What about the Panthers? Granny Bast made it a clan contract with the Uzumaki? That's fine, you just keep that cutthroat pussycat away from me, Manda ordered. Naruto nodded in agreement, and felt the same little snake wrap around his wrist, transporting him back to Orochi's kitchen. She was at her counter preparing to chop something, making a late breakfast. Naruto approached her, and while she knew, the Sannin never turned around nor acknowledged his return. Not even when she felt his arms around her waist. That wasn't very nice, Tobeo, he whispered. I have never claimed to be nice, Naruto-kun. She responded, continuing her prep work, even as she felt his hands slide into her robe. But you can be sweet even. Don't worry, your secret is safe with me, Naruto responded. Orochi moaned. One of Naruto's hands traveled north and the other headed, at a teasingly slow pace, south. Good. If these people think they don't have to fear me, they may try to hold actual conversations with me. Naruto laughed but said nothing else, bantering being far from his mind. Orochi agreed, having been still turned on from previously. As she felt her former student preparing to take her from behind, Orochimaru was internally pleased. Just a few short weeks ago he would not have done this. He was shy or uncomfortable about sex, more overly respectful. She didn't know why. Maybe her history with Hiruzen or Naruto not wanting her to feel used, but she had to rid him of it. One of the things she adored about him was his passion, and she'd accept nothing less than that aspect of their lives. A gentleman in the sheets benefited no one. He learned quickly, to both their benefits. And as a small gasp escaped her lips upon being entered, she was pleased. Clearly, Manda had, to some extent, accepted Naruto, so she wouldn't have to worry about that any longer. Maybe Manda would start behaving normally again. She gripped the counter tightly as Naruto increased his pace, reveling in the sensation and the sounds he was making. He might be aiming for a quickie in the kitchen, but she knew better. They'd be in her bed shortly, hours having gone by in a blink of an eye. Orochi frowned when she felt Naruto pull out. She wasn't given time to voice her displeasure, as she felt herself turned around and hoisted into the air. With practiced ease, she adjusted to the position change, kissing her lover deeply as she rolled her hips. "Maybe you should create a clone so we can finish this upstairs," she suggested, and Naruto complied. She giggled at the annoyed face the clone made. The silent protest of having to cook while the original was so obvious he may as well have shouted it. Playfully she blew the clone a kiss and winked as she was carried off. She wouldn't know immediately, but it was possible that another step of her plan would be completed today. If not, it wouldn't be due to lack of effort. It was just as she said, hours seemingly passed in a blink of an eye. Now, as her head lay on his chest, raising and lowering gently with each breath, she takes a moment to regard him. He'd changed so much over their time apart, having lost much of the roundness in his face but still retaining some softness. She also noticed that he seemed to be somewhere else mentally. His look wasn't one of worry but preoccupation. As if he could tell he was being watched, he looked down and smiled brightly at her. "Sorry, lost in thought," he said. "I hope I'm not boring you already, Naruto-kun." "Never," was his response. "Then what were you thinking about?" she asked. Naruto squashed the impulse to lie and say nothing. It felt wrong and he didn't want to hide things, but he also didn't want to burden her with his concerns, so he went for a change in topic. "Have you considered starting on another sub-element?" It didn't take a genius to see his dodge, but she would allow it for now. "In the abstract, yes. The magnet release isn't exactly easy but is more than battle-ready, as far as how I plan to use it. Do you have some thoughts?" she inquired, and Naruto nodded. "If you're comfortable with Jiten, then Koton might be an easier step as it's something of a continuation. As opposed to a wholly different two-element combination?" It surprised her that Naruto thought adding a third element into a manipulation would be easier, but he would have the experience. "How should I start?" Naruto chuckled as he could hear the excitement in her voice. He wouldn't blame her. Pushing his chakra to do as much as it could, the joy of a new development had been a solace to him for much of his life. And every new development just inspired him to top it, to try to do more. "Do you have some iron sand on you?" The Uzumaki watched as a seal glowed on her left arm and a clump of iron sand emerged on her palm. "Start spinning it slowly." The snake Sannin did just that. Her eyes widened slightly as she witnessed Naruto's hands be engulfed in golden chakra. She channeled chakra into the contact lens covering her Sharingan eye, wanting to remember this in perfect detail. As Naruto placed his hand under hers, she felt it warm as this potent, pure filling chakra was being transferred to her. The iron sand began to solidify into one mass and change into a blob of steel. "Now you have to think of an object. The more familiar you are with the object, the easier the manipulation," Naruto said. Orochimaru considered what she'd like and quickly came to a conclusion. Instantly, she watched as the mass above her hand started to lengthen. In almost no time, what was once sand was now a handleless Dao sword, the blade a little wider than a katana and the curve more gentle. But she also felt it, the change from Jiten to Koton, and despite what Naruto said, it was incredibly complex. But it also felt like, once learned, the shape manipulation felt more natural. Almost like Earth, if it wanted to be something else. She considered the exchange, her vast intellect more focused on why Naruto would suggest Koton than on how to mimic what she just experienced. She was cognitively diverse, or what some might call a high-functioning sociopath. She didn't process emotions like everyone, but she forced herself to understand them. His far-off gaze, his changing of the subject, and now the Koton led her to one conclusion: he was worried. "That didn't feel that straightforward, Naruto-kun." "Yeah, it isn't easy, but I managed it, and I'm not a genius nor the strongest of a legendary trio." "You flatter me, but I doubt I'd have enough time to get a handle on Koton, certainly not enough time to learn the impervious armor jutsu you're looking to teach me," she said. She paid no attention to the surprise on his face, placing the newly created sword on her dresser. Only once she returned did she speak again. You don't have to concern yourself with I. The lightning armor is formidable, but all jutsu have a weakness. Though covering myself in high conductive material would seem like a really bad idea. The lightning armor trades the conductive and piercing power of right on for increased strength, speed, and near perfect protection of the user's body. Unless one wielding it intentionally tries, it won't really shock nor pierce you. If that weren't the case, the lightning could be forced to divert to various conductive sources, making the user lose control. Unless you and I are on much better terms than I realized, there is only one way you could know that much about the lightning armor. No wonder Tsunade's been so smug, hinting at you teaching her something special. Does your girlfriend not deserve such a magnificent jutsu, Naruto-kun? Orochi asked, finishing with a pout. I thought you were my rival? I happen to be naked, so right now I am no such thing. And if you walk around like that all the time, then I guess we'll never be rivals. Orochimaru put one hand on her chest and another on her forehead in mock hori. Think of the scandal, Naruto-kun. What about my virtue? He didn't fight back the laugh motivated by his girlfriend's antics. Once his fit was over, he did make one minor correction. I'm not teaching Obachan the lightning armor, I'm teaching her how to beat it. There is a lesser but more flexible derivative jutsu called lightning style, overdrive, and I did show her that. Well, I guess that's okay. Orochi responded, knowing about that jutsu herself. It would be absolutely destructive in Tsunade's hands, and the snake Sannin was looking forward to their next spar. With the grace befitting her years of experience, Orochimaru slid over Naruto and straddled him. She looked deeply into his eyes and reiterated her initial point. You don't have to fear for my safety. I am well equipped to fight the Raikage. I believe you. Naruto started before pausing and collecting his thoughts. I don't fear but I also don't understand him. What does he want? Why do this now? It can't just be what Raza sent, can it? No, she reassured him. At most you'd simply be an excuse. It also doesn't surprise me you can't understand him. I have a theory, and if I'm right, it isn't a conclusion you'd reach, it just isn't like you. What do you mean? You look at the state of the shinobi villages and you see peace. Not perfect, but peace all the same, and you can't see why anyone would want to upset that, sacrifice lives for a tolerable status quo. But that is the thinking of someone that believes in the will of fire, of the very ideas underpinning the creation of Konoha. You have to remember, Hashirama-sama and Madara created Konoha to stop the senseless deaths of sending children to battle after battle. Every other village was created in response and out of fear of the Senju Uchiha alliance. Even if some find it tolerable now, they were forced to change because of Konoha's mere existence. And ever since then, any attempt to radically change that, each shinobi war, Konoha's involvement resulted in the protection of the order it necessitated. During my time away, I started to see Konoha as this stagnant force that was keeping a lid on progress. I may feel the same way. Winning outright may not even be his aim. He could simply want to cripple the leaf for a generation or two, so Kumo has the ability to set the course for the future. It's not worth it, Naruto said. Maybe not, but has understanding him changed anything? Not really. Don't be a hero, Naruto-kun, Orochimaru said. If war does come, don't be a fool and be merciful to your enemies. Maybe they aren't at fault, simply loyal to a cretin, but that's their problem. You have responsibilities to your clan, to your friends, and to me to come home in one piece. Don't let Jiraiya's silly ideology shorten your life. Kumo won't care, won't be swayed by your sacrifice. Fight with your full power. Promise me, she requested. She knew what she was doing by forcing this promise on him, but she needed to know he would be selfish and prioritize his happiness. Maybe the shinobi world needed a hero, but it'd have to find someone else. He was hers. Hers and no one else's. There are times for mercy, Orochi-chan. There are things worth sacrificing yourself for. My clan, my friends, you. I can't promise to never do that, but I do promise to always do my best to come home. I won't pursue a fool's peace, and if the worst happens and Kumo calls for war, I'll give them all they can handle and then some to bail. That'll do for now, she said, and was awarded a face-splitting grin. I do have one more question. That golden chakra, was that Dash? The Kyuubi? Yeah. We're totally buds now. Oh, and that's why it isn't so malicious? Yup. Naruto was cut off by the sound of a distinctive knock. And I would love to explain how, but Obachan is here, so I need to go get ready, Naruto said. As he grabbed his clothes, he gave her a quick peck and teleported to his room. Nice ass, Suzumaki, an unwanted guest said. Naruto turned around, hands darting toward his groin. What the hell, Karen-chan? Why are you in my room, Tebeo? Some guy dropped off Jiraiya-sama and your suits. I was hanging it up because I'm a wonderful cousin. I wasn't expecting a show. And you're still not getting one. Then you're going to need to lard your hands. Naruto's face started to match his hair. Get out, Databeo. Fine, geez. Karen exited and Naruto ran into his private bathroom, bemoaning that his father probably never had to deal with stuff like this. The double date went well, for the most part. Keeping to her word, Orochi was nice to Jiraiya. It was the other patrons not used to seeing the snake Sannin in something as slinky as a black cocktail dress that were causing a problem. Though, when she casually mentioned anyone looking to keep their eyes should keep them off her, that changed. And Jiraiya, meeting her halfway, was respectful as well. He even managed not to complete disassemble when Orochi mentioned Naruto meeting Manda. It was a lovely evening, filled with good company, food and copious amounts of alcohol for Tsunade and Jiraiya. As the foursome vacated the Platinum Lotus, one of the finest restaurants in Konoha, Naruto chose to walk Orochi home and Jiraiya did the same for Tsunade. It had been mostly silent between the two Sannin, their walk illuminated by the starlit sky. It wasn't tense, but it wasn't a companionable silence either. The two had so much unsaid between them, and with more life behind them than in front, they each wondered if that would ever change. Tsunade tugged at Jiraiya's black suit jacket, the garment hanging off her shoulders to combat some of the briskness of the night air. I know you convinced Naruto to come along, so I would agree with this after you asked me. Jiraiya grinned. I had no doubt. Still, I think it was worth it. It was fun. I could certainly use more of that. Heavy is the head, Jiraiya said, not finishing the quote. Tsunade nodded. I knew it would be, but Sensei couldn't continue on, and you wouldn't have taken the chair, so that left me. A position I never wanted, living someone else's dream. Sometimes that's all we can do for the dead. I wonder what Minato would say. If I'd redeemed myself over the last 3 years, if he'd forgive me. You really did love him like a son, Tsunade observed. I did. I never got it, how you could leave. How we all seemed to rate so much lower. Not until Minato did I really understand the hopelessness of seeing your future taken away. It wasn't that you didn't care about us, you just couldn't see a path forward, and I'm sorry I wasn't able to help you. I am too, Jiraiya. I knew how you felt, I should have reached out. Who knows how things could have been different. Nothing else was said for the rest of the walk, not until they reached Tsunade's doorstep. Tonight was fun, we should do it again sometime, Jiraiya said. Yeah, I wouldn't mind that, Tsunade responded, handing her former teammate his suit jacket. They bid each other goodnight, and Jiraiya made his way home, feeling more hopeful about certain aspects of his life than he had in some time. Like Tsunade, Orochimaru was also sporting a suit jacket around her shoulders. Naruto's charcoal gray sharkskin jacket fitting a little better on her than Jiraiya's on Tsunade. As they neared Orochi's manor, the proximity between the two became closer. Accidental brushes of the arm or hand grew in commonality. The accidental became intentional as Naruto wrapped his arm around the Sannin's waist, stealing a kiss under the streetlight. You staying tonight? She asked. You're not sick of me yet? He inquired cheekily. I'm just as surprised as you, Orochi responded. Knowing he'd been one-upped, he retaliated with another kiss. It was meant to be quick but transitioned into something else entirely. Not wanting to waste time, the two shunched into Orochi's. Naruto pulled her into another kiss, her back against the door. On separate, he whispered, Someone's here. She nodded, having sensed a presence as well and had a better than good idea of who it might be. Wordlessly, Naruto departed and Orochi straightened herself up before she entered her home. Strutting to the location of her intruder, she saw her sensei sitting in a chair with a beaten and restrained Kabuto beside him. Why are you here? She asked, foregoing any hint of game playing. Before I answer that, why doesn't Naruto drop the genjutsu and join us? There won't be any need for an assassin's strike under the cover of darkness. Instantly, several shimmers appeared and it was revealed that Naruto had snuck in 3 shadow clones along with himself. I counted only 2 shadow clones, I really must be slipping. You can ruminate about your monumental decline elsewhere, what do you want? To put an end to this war of ours, Orochimaru. To reach some sort of ceasefire before things escalate to a point where there is only one option, you tried to kill me or I tried to kill you. The snake Sannin was shocked by this, assuming her sensei would never give up trying to entrap her. But he was right, there weren't many more places to go before they had to try to kill one another. A part of her would love to see him dead after having been brought low and thoroughly shamed. It would be a fitting conclusion to their tale. Not for the affair. She wouldn't deny she had some affection for the man and respected him as a ninja, but compared to Naruto, Hiruzen was just a cure for her boredom. She also didn't care about the abortion, having a child wasn't in her career plans at the time, and she'd seen his other kids, they were hardly impressive. No, the burning hatred she had for Hiruzen Sarutobi rested on one thing. To save his marriage, he spun a tale about his seductress of a student who used her wiles to secure her selection as the next Hokage. This ensured he wouldn't, for any reason, ever allow her to replace him. He killed her dream, all to avoid the consequences of his actions. She often, bitterly, thought that was the best Hiruzen had ever fucked her. So she harmed his precious family, spat on his will of fire, and made him eat seeing her as his favorite student. But she didn't need that anymore. She'd won. He'd departed in scandal and shame, and more importantly, she had Naruto, and continuing to one-up her sensei could jeopardize that. And whatever upheaval may happen outside the village, she needed things to remain stable here for the immediate future. She'd won. It was a total victory. She decided to sit down and hear the defeated man out. As Hiruzen began to share the details of why Kabuto was beaten up, neither the Sandaime nor Orochimaru were paying much attention to Naruto. He was remaining silent, but they simply could not hear the most important conversation happening in the room. The old man lies. I can sense his duplicity as if it were a 10th tale, Naruto. Thanks, Kurama. If he endangers her, I know I'll lose Konohamaru and maybe even Kurenai-sensei, but I'll erase him. Even now, the prospect doesn't please you. I never truly wanted the old man dead, just to either do better or get out of the way. And, as much as I hate it, I can't completely forget about how he was when I was younger. I was so angry back then, I could have become someone you could have never respected. That has to count for something. But my gratitude has limits and he's long crossed them. What's the plan? Kurama asked. He could do very little for his friend. He knew Naruto was telling the truth, wishing the aged monkey would stop with his meddling. I don't know. I really don't know. Chapter 18, Go to Church. Do you ever regret it, Jiraiya? Naruto asked. It was the day after the old man's confession and Naruto hadn't slept much. After Hiruzen left, Naruto watched as a beaten Kabuto almost had his skull crushed by the hands of his lover. Subtly channeling Kurama's chakra, he could feel her disappointment in Kabuto's actions. The offense in his motivation. But more than anything, her rage. It didn't burn like his. Before he integrated and got a true leash on his emotions, Naruto's anger often felt like it could melt tempered steel. Hers was cold but no less pronounced in its expression. He didn't step in, however, because she hadn't felt out of control and he was proven correct. The disgraced medic was told to leave, given some mission he only half paid attention to, but while helping Kabuto up off the ground he placed a Hiraishin marker on him. Kabuto had shown himself to be a potential threat, and death would come swiftly should the need arise. Jiraiya looked at his godson, the red-haired young man sitting under a tree and looking up at the sky. But his eyes didn't seem focused. It was not for the first time Jiraiya wondered what his final student was seeing. If there were a stark contrast between Naruto and Minato, it would be that for all his genius, Minato was often focused on the present, the next obstacle. His freakish, and frankly inhuman, ability to process things at a rate a Nara would envy allowed him to do so. Naruto often seemed focused on the future, the present a mere formality. Their worldviews showed in their development. Minato created the Rasengan after seeing a tailed beast bomb and improved the Hiraishin. Naruto believed he could use the sub-elements before he truly mastered any of the primary ones. Jiraiya never saw Minato have a moment of self-doubt. Not that he lacked introspection, he just came to decisions quickly and moved. Naruto doubted and thought and agonized. Whereas Minato was the perfect shinobi, Naruto was the most powerful. I have many regrets, kid, you'll have to be more specific. Seriously training me. You didn't have to make me a toad summoner or request I undergo training to be a sage. Even some of the sub-elements I learned came from the information you provided me. Not for a minute. Jiraiya responded without delay. Where is this coming from? Naruto hesitated before answering, not sure how to express it all. When I first started seriously training, it was out of offense. There was so much in my life I couldn't control. I couldn't know about my parents, couldn't change my reputation. Couldn't not be the shortest. Couldn't not be alone. But my chakra was just that, mine. Something I could control, and yet some fucking geek was telling me when I was allowed to learn jutsu. I couldn't stand it, so one day I made a decision. And I made that decision the next day and the day after that. I didn't understand then that strength can't exist in a vacuum, not in this world. A decision made almost 10 years ago, and remade every day since. I wanted to be the strongest, the best. What would change for the better if you were weaker? I'd probably sleep better. Naruto quipped. Bullshit. You may have made the choice at 7, but you would have made it at 10 or 12 or whatever. The weak are preyed upon unless they get stronger or someone does it for them. At what point are you simply preying on the weak regardless of your intention? Jiraiya stroked his chin, deducing some of Naruto's concerns. He hadn't told Tsunade the true extent of Naruto's abilities yet, there hadn't been much reason. Jiraiya had seen powerful shinobi, he trained 5 of them. Minato could decimate armies. Nagato could do so much more. Naruto was simply in a different class and he was likely there alone. You don't seek conflict, Naruto. That's debatable. At the very least, I invite it. You didn't invent war, kid. We've waged a few before you got here. I'm not saying that. However, even if only a pretext, Raza's daseami didn't exactly help matters. Strength invites challenge, be it out of fear, anger, grief, or arrogance. In a world full of killers, what good is being the strongest, the best while speaking of peace? When your enemies only see the strength, the peace you want looks like tyranny. We don't have to be just killers, we can be more. I could build every resident of Konoha a new house and they'd consider it a neat trick. If I killed the Raikage with a tree root, I'd be made Hokage tomorrow. We didn't make ourselves killers alone, we had help. Someone was paying the clans, someone pays for missions now. An entire intricate web that runs on violence. The clan sees one thing, the enemy sees another. No one is encouraged to see the humanity of the other. I believe people will understand each other, Naruto. Jiraiya responded and saw Naruto shake his head. I believe they can too, but understanding promises nothing. What if what we want is simply incompatible? Understanding isn't going to change that. Or what if we can't forego that feeling that comes with overcoming those that oppose us? That high from putting your life on the line, staring death in the face and getting away with it. The excitement of true victory? I can't argue against that, but it's a better path forward than false assumptions and bloodletting. Now, come on, what brought this on? Everything? Nothing? Or something in the middle? We talk about people understanding each other, but that doesn't even happen in Konoha, or maybe it has and that's the problem. Naruto stated. He knew he wasn't being clear, so he laid it out plainly. The old man was waiting in Orochi-chan's house when we returned. He'd cooked up some plan with Kabuto but claimed he was abandoning it. Called for a truce of sorts between her and him. That's good. He was lying. Less so. I accepted that he almost got her killed when he held back help against Nagato. I didn't have much choice, he was Hokage. He isn't Hokage anymore. Naruto rubbed his face in irritation. They, to some extent, have a better read on each other than anyone else. They enjoy playing those games and she isn't just passive. I recognize her part, but my tolerance for it has run out. If he moves against her again, I'll get involved. You thought of talking to him? Jiraiya questioned but knew the answer. He sometimes forgot the negative emotion sensing the Kyuubi had provided Naruto. He sees me as a 7-year-old prop, not an agent with my own will. I don't want to do this, Jiraiya. I'm more than happy to leave him alone. Then make him see you differently. I've tried to dissuade him. I have no doubt Tsunade has as well, but Sensei is convinced he's protecting you. Maybe he just needs some reassurance that's not the case. Besides, if you were to move against him, even justified as you would be, you have to know there are a lot of ninja that would stand in your way. Retired Hokage exist in a murky place. No real authority but a lot of sway and pull. He doesn't have enough bodies to put between us to deter me. That's part of the problem, Jiraiya thought. Don't go feeling guilty for things you haven't even done yet, idiot. You know, your mother would kick your ass if she saw you sulking like this. Then she'd feed you inhuman amounts of ramen, Jiraiya said with a chuckle. Naruto laughed as well, liking the thought. I think you should go talk to him. Believe it or not, he really does think he's doing this for you. But enough of all that heavy stuff, what are we working on today? A few clones will be experimenting with steel release, but I'll be training yin-yang release. Why don't I just save you some time and carry you to the hospital now? It's not that bad, Tobeo, Naruto exclaimed, but in truth, it was. Of all the releases he's attempted, this was by far the most difficult, Naruto not managing to create a single jutsu or reliably channel to chakra nature at all. Whatever, kid. What exactly are you attempting? I've got time, so when you knock yourself out, I'll get you where you need to go. Naruto rolled his eyes but got to work, committed to making his godfather eat his words. So, what specifically are you trying to do? Maybe I can help. I've been learning how to generate healing chakra from Obu-chan. Her self-healing ability comes mostly from a mastery of yin release. She hypothesized Hashirama-sama's came from his mastery over yang release, Naruto stated. Which is believable given the requirements of the Mokutan, Jiraiya added. Yup. I'm attempting to use yin-yang release. If I can, I theorize it should allow for even more radical healing than Hashirama-sama, and with none of the drawbacks of Obu-chan's, and I could even use it on others, not just myself. How radical? Hard to say, but yin-yang release is basically pure creation, so grow back a limb, Bring someone back from the brink of death? Who knows really? Naruto answered. Jiraiya's eyes light up at the possibilities of such a technique. It'd certainly be a step forward in the medical arts if Naruto could pull it off. What are you waiting for? Get to it! Jiraiya exclaimed, breaking Naruto's concentration. I'm trying, you shitty pervert! Try harder! Naruto's hair shaping into 9 distinct tails was all the warning Jiraiya got before the chase began, one toad sage doggedly pursuing the other. Elsewhere, Tsunade donned a grim expression on her face. Orochimaru had shared Hiruzen's confession and call for a truce. Neither woman believed the man was done. Tsunade knew neither side would ever truly budge, their mutual antipathy well earned over the years. Is Kabuto still alive? Kukuku, of course. Tsunade hummed in acknowledgement. It wasn't a guarantee she'd have left the boy alive, not after he confirmed he told Sasori where to find Naruto. Tsunade wouldn't have cared if Orochimaru killed him, but doing so without going through proper channels could have caused a problem, which was the Sandaima's goal. It wasn't the worst plan. Where is he now? He was told to join Kimimaro-kun and the others in their search for Zetsu. Orochimaru responded. Tsunade shot her friend a look. You sure that was wise? From my understanding, the Kagaya is a bit fanatical in his loyalty. What happens if he gets Kabuto? Kimimaro won't do any permanent damage. He knows how to follow orders. And if they should find and neutralize Zetsu? What then? Why, I don't know, Tsunade-chan. You're the Hokage, I'm sure you'll figure something out. Orochimaru said, sarcasm dripping off every word. Tsunade simply rolled her eyes before sighing. Are you going to finally tell Naruto? Now that he knows about the secret room? Yes, tonight, Orochimaru answered, her tone losing all playfulness. If he doesn't respond, well, I'll handle it, Tsunade-chan, Orochimaru stated. Tsunade nodded and let the matter rest. Not liking the tense atmosphere, the snake summoner decided to change topics. We've been so focused on how my night went we haven't even brought up your after-dinner activities. Tell me, Tsunade-chan, did you let that toad play in your well? She said, donning a devious smirk. What? Tsunade asked in genuine shock. It's a metaphor. The toad represents Jiraiya and the well your vag dash. She was cut off before she could finish. I know what you meant and no, of course I didn't. What is wrong with you? I'm a high-functioning sociopath that got cock-blocked by a geezer. The question was rhetorical. And I answered using rhetoric. Keep this up and I'll declare you a missing ninja, Tsunade said on faux exasperation. Sex was that bad. Glad the student doesn't take after the teacher. Once again, Jiraiya did nothing but walk me home. To even suggest anything more is absurd. You did go out on a date with him. That was to observe you and Naruto. You rarely go out. How am I supposed to watch you blush cutely when Naruto does something sweet if you don't go out into the public? I never knew you liked to watch, Orochimaru said, attempting to unsettle Tsunade once more. I get my jollies where I can, Tsunade responded, not allowing her friend the upper hand any further. But to be serious for a moment, wouldn't Jiraiya and I dating bother you? I thought you hated him. I don't hate Jiraiya. I did when we were kids, but I realized he was just competing for Sensei's attention like we all were. Once you understand that, he just becomes a sad, little fool that's fun to mock. Besides, even I know the value of someone that has your back and we fought a war together. Don't abstain on my account. Naruto was making his way to the Hyuga compound, traveling at a sedate pace. Contrary to Jiraiya's taunts, he hadn't rendered himself unconscious or exhausted his chakra network in his attempt at yin-yang release. And while there hadn't been a monumental breakthrough, if one were to ignore a stunningly few number of people could even use the release, Naruto concluded he was getting a grip on how it felt to call upon the two contrasting energies at once in near-perfect balance. The Uzumaki leader was happy with his progress, but his face wouldn't show it. He couldn't articulate it, but he had a sense Kurama was feeling apprehensive about something, and while he wouldn't claim to be an authority on Kurama's personality, the fox was never shy about expressing his opinion. This got Naruto both curious and a little concerned. Kurama, are you okay? He asked. I am conflicted. The Bijou shared. Any way I can help? No, as you are central to the conflict. There is a technique that utilizes yin-yang release. I have only ever seen 2 people use said technique and neither learned it but were able to do so innately. I'm guessing one of them was your old man? Yes, Kurama answered swiftly. Naruto didn't follow up immediately. He knew how much Kurama revered his father, so even considering sharing a technique from him would be a pretty significant gesture. Well, I still have a ways to go with yin-yang release, so how about you not worry about it until then? No need to cause yourself any unnecessary stress, Naruto reasoned. You are closer than you realize, Kurama said. He'd been with the boy his entire life, likely understand his chakra better than even Naruto himself. He was very near being able to reliably wield the most difficult of releases. It wasn't even a matter of when but how, and that the boy thought of healing before the potential destructive capabilities confirmed what Kurama already knew: his container was a good person. Whether or not he was the one his father spoke of, Kurama couldn't say. He even questioned if such a person would be allowed to exist, as the Bijou felt this world simply didn't want such a figure to come to the fore. However, if such a person did exist, Kurama believed Naruto would be the likeliest candidate. One of his fondest memories was the boy, a mere 14-year-old, demanding they be friends because no one should be alone. And with that, Kurama decided he would try to help Naruto learn the pinnacle of ninjutsu, confident he wouldn't abuse the ability. With one of his concerns put to rest, Kurama cut the connection and allowed Naruto to focus. Naruto walked into the outdoor area he normally trained Hanabi. He heard before he saw her diligently striking a training post. It would take months for her to truly reprogram her instincts away from the gentle fist, but she was a dedicated student and a pleasure to teach. He also saw her ninjato sitting beside her, a little charm tied to the handle. Some might admonish her, but Naruto wouldn't. She wasn't a kunoichi yet, but a child training to be one. Also, if she were good enough to get away with it, then why shouldn't she? The Uzumaki was not alone in observing his student, Hayashi, and Neji both in attendance. It was not surprising to see Hayashi there, as he would pop in their sessions from time to time. Neji, however, had been unexpected. The two had crossed paths since Naruto revealed his heritage, and the Hyuga seemed to not know how to regard him. Naruto thought he should just visit that bun-haired girl one night and get laid so he'd stop worrying about other people. It had surprised no one that Jiraiya agreed with Naruto's assessment. Hayashi-san, Neji-san, Naruto greeted. Hanabi heard but knew to continue her warm-up. Pleasantries could wait. Naruto-san, Hayashi replied. Uzumaki-san, Neji said. You two planning on observing today? Naruto asked in genuine curiosity. It'd be a really unfortunate lesson to sit in on. If you wouldn't mind, Hayashi answered, and Neji merely nodded. Of course not. And it appears she is done warming up. Good morning, Hanabi-chan. Good morning, Naruto, she said, and ignored the brief tensing of her father's face. Naruto didn't require or ask her to call him sensei, so she didn't, and her father needed to accept it. What are we doing today? I'm not going to have to fight those demonic gummy things again, am I? Naruto laughed. To help her practice her new taijutsu style, Naruto created a few of his water-style, gummy paladins to fight her. Not really stronger than the average water clone, but significantly more durable, Hanabi did not enjoy sparring the little golems. Not today, Hanabi-chan. We're going to start you on getting used to fighting without one of your biggest assets. He watched as she thought for a moment before coming to a conclusion. My Byakugan? Yup. Not saying it'd ever happen, but if you are in a situation where you need to rely on other sensory inputs, it's best you have trained and prepared for such an event. Now, the rules are simple. Once it starts, I will only move, at most, 5 feet from my current position. You must find me and retrieve this scroll, he explained, pulling a red scroll from his pocket. Once you do that, we can move on to the next exercise. Any questions? Just one. How are you going to suppress my Byakugan? With Genjutsu, of course. I don't think you quite get how my eyes work, Naruto, Hanabi said. Naruto simply smiled while performing a sequence of hand signs, and before the Hyuga heiress realized it, she was cloaked in perfect darkness. An infinite blackness that knew no start nor any end. What many don't know about Tobirama Senju's Genjutsu is the psychological toll being trapped in pure, unending nothingness can do. If undisciplined or weak of mind, the insecurities poor repressed will come to the forefront. For others, it's an overwhelming sense of paranoia as their honed instincts tell them threats are all around them. Hanabi had lost all sense of herself, the illusion making her feel a part of this unnatural night. Every sound made her twitch, unable to pinpoint the location. She knew she just had to walk straight ahead and then decided if her sensei moved further back or to the side. But that first step was so difficult. Her body screamed to move meant instant death. Her only safety was to stay still. She felt her body shivering, a sense of terror and dread overcoming her. Outside of the illusion, Hayashi and Neji watched, either able to pierce the illusion with their famed bloodline. Hayashi knew of this technique but had never seen it, had never wanted to. To think the art they were naturally defensive of could overcome them. The Nidain was a truly fearsome man, and for Naruto to seemingly use the jutsu casually made Hayashi believe the boy was more formidable than he'd estimated. Uncle, what is this technique? It's called the Bringer of Darkness, an S-class forbidden jutsu created by Tobirama-sama. How do you think Uzumaki knows such a technique? I could only speculate. Maybe Tsunade-sama showed him, but I doubt she'd let him look at the forbidden scroll. It is also possible that Orochimaru knows the technique and taught him. Truly fate favors him, Neji replied. He kept his features and voice even, but Hayashi could hear the traces of resentment and jealousy. His nephew had come a long way, managing to stop hating the main branch over the last few years, but even Hisashi's words could not reach him. His belief in fate and his confidence he could see its design were too central to his being. Back in the illusion, Hanabi had gotten the resolve to march forward. Every step felt like a battle one, with the physical and mental exhaustion to go along with it. She'd taken 5 steps thus far. And a 6th. Slowly, she forced her body to stop twitching at every sound as if it were a grave threat. 7th step. Next, she got her legs to stop shaking with nothing but the force of her will. With her 8th step, she walked into something solid and felt a hand on top of her head. Faster than she could react, the illusion was gone and her sensei's whiskered face was smiling down at her. You did very well, Hanabi-chan. He praised, but the Hyuga did not feel it was deserved. Naruto could see as much on her face. You may not believe you did anything, but it's true. On my very first mission outside of the village we were ambushed by some bandits. And I froze. All my instincts, all my training left me. Luckily, the Chunin leader handled them, but had he not, I was a liability. I promised myself that day I'd never freeze like that again. But that doesn't mean I was never scared. Fear isn't to be ignored, however, it also cannot be allowed to paralyze us. You fought through your fear and achieved your goal. That is laudable, so don't downplay it, okay? Hi, she responded, feeling a little embarrassed by Naruto's sincerity. She saw he still had the scroll in his hand and reached for it, the Uzumaki giving it to her without protest. As she opened it, she saw directions for how to perform a sealless replacement jutsu. I want you to, slowly, start decreasing the number of signs needed to perform the replacement jutsu. I'm not going to lie, most jutsu are too complex to truly be done without hand signs, and to attempt mid-battle would likely take more time than just performing them. But for something like this or the Shushin, going sealless is not only feasible, but it could save your life. Hanabi took the scroll and promptly began practicing. Naruto walked back toward Hayashi and Neji. That was very clever, Naruto-san. Telling Hanabi you'd be testing one thing when you were really examining something else is something a seasoned teacher would do. Well, I've gotten a little practice with Konohamaru and his friends, so I'm not entirely new to this. How did you come to learn the Nidame's jutsu, Uzumaki-san? In appreciation of the alliance between the Senju and the Uzumaki prior to the founding of the hidden villages, and Konoha and Uzushio afterward, Hashirama-sama and Tobirama-sama left scrolls of some of their jutsu in the care of the Uzumaki. Once my heritage was revealed and my inheritance given to me, it was just a matter of finding them. Alliance? Uzushio? Neji asked, confused. Yes, the Uzumaki weren't just a clan but cousins to the Senju. Hashirama-sama's wife, Mito, was an Uzumaki herself and a gifted practitioner of Fuin Jutsu. Hayashi informed his nephew. You have quite the pedigree, Uzumaki-san. Naruto shrugged. Neji wasn't wrong, and Naruto could recognize the advantages of being born to the parents he had, but some of that was negated by them dying on the day he was born. Or maybe he was just crazy. The three continued to watch Hanabi train when Kurama spoke again. There's going to be a problem, he said. What? You remember that thing we thought might happen, but if it did, it wouldn't be for years? You mean Yurien half reforming, not with you but outside of the seal and somewhere near or in Konoha? Yes. You have 10 seconds. Naruto created hundreds of shadow clones, one meant to find Tsunade and request she not send any ninja to where the other Kurama appeared. One to Jiraiya to ask him to do the same. Naruto himself spread his chakra around to sense where his father's Hiraishin markers were. 10 seconds passed quickly and he'd yet to explain anything to Hayashi, the man startled by seeing someone produce hundreds of something that could kill some jounin if they tried to make 5. Whatever Hayashi's question would have been would never be verbalized, as he saw something he'd hoped to never see again. Collectively, Konoha froze in terror when the bane of their existence, the being they held responsible for the death of the 4th Hokage, appeared above them. All was quiet, eerily so, as they soaked in the unfathomable fox. And then, as if a spell had been broken, collectively their wits returned just as Naruto's clones started to spread throughout. A moment of realization was shared. The Kyuubi had returned and chaos ensued. For a few, the return of the Kyuubi didn't just refresh long-repressed traumatic memories. No, they believed they were seeing proof of the death of Naruto. Only the appearance of a clone stopped Tsunade and Orochimaru from acting recklessly. I'm fine, the clone explained. We thought this might happen but assumed we had years yet. What happened and how are you alive? Tsunade asked in a near panic. My dad didn't seal the entire Kyuubi into me, only half. He took the other half with him, but someone he was freed from the Shinigami's stomach. Dead people can't be Jinchuriki, and without the power of the Shinigami, the Kyuubi's other half was going to always return. We had hoped it would simply return to the one in the seal, but as you can see, that hasn't happened. Why didn't you warn me? I thought I'd be Hokage by the time it came back. The Sanbai still hasn't returned and it's been 3 years. That's no excuse. You should have warned me even if it never happened. I know and I'm sorry. The original is going to deal with it, but you have to keep the other ninja away. If they attack, the Kyuubi will as well. I'm going with the original, Orochimaru said. She was gone before the clone could argue against it. Tsunade ordered her Yanbiyu to execute a village-wide lockdown. Kakashi moved through the streets, made all the more difficult by the pandemonium. The screams were deafening and the giant fox hadn't even done anything yet. Looking down at the village in mild confusion. That didn't matter. He knew a Jinchuriki couldn't survive the bijou being extracted or otherwise leaving the seal. He cursed himself to failing once more, but he had to find Naruto. It didn't know why, but he needed to see his body with his own eyes. You shouldn't be going that way, Kakashi heard from an all-too-familiar voice. Naruto? Clone, but yeah. I'm alive and can handle the fox. Going there won't do you any good. Why are you doing this to us? A villager yelled at the clone and more people turned to look at him. Please make it stop. I have a family. We all do. Please. Look, just get to the shelters. This isn't something I'm doing. I'm not attacking the village. But the fox? All will be explained after the original me handles this. I won't let the village get wrecked. The clones saw the looks of skepticism, but the ninja on the scene pushed them toward the shelters, while they wondered what to believe. Hiruzen and Jiraiya both were hurtling toward the fox, Jiraiya holding off on summoning Gamabunta in case Naruto needed to do so. However, the Toad Sage's progress was stopped when he saw ninja attempting to attack clones of Naruto. Several yelling they had been right, the fox boy had simply bid his time to strike. None of them could touch the clones, but they also couldn't attack without proving the deranged shinobi correct. Stop your attacks this instance! Jiraiya bellowed. Jiraiya-sama, he dash. Shut the hell up. If the fox were out of the seal, Naruto's clones wouldn't exist because he'd be dead or dying. Then how? That's not your concern. Help people get to safety and await further instruction. And if I ever see you attack my godson again, I'll kill you where you stand. Go! He barked. Thanks. No problem. You know if the original has a plan? Get him out of the village and try to talk things out. And if that doesn't work? Let's hope it does. The clone answered and Jiraiya returned to chasing toward the Kyuubi at top speed. Somehow he managed to make it to the Kyuubi's location at the same time as his sensei, who was decked out in battle armor. Each watched as Naruto held out his fist toward the bijou. Said chakra beast seemed to consider the offer, instead deciding to slam down his hand on top of Naruto. They paled, fearful the fox had killed him. Elsewhere in the village, Naruto was reassuring his sensei. Once she saw the Kyuubi, she'd gotten her shoes on, fully intending to go find Naruto. The Sandaime had told her what would happen should the Kyuubi ever escape the seal: Naruto would die. She was met at the door by her student, or a clone. He quickly explained what was happening, and while it didn't exactly comfort her, at least she knew he wasn't dead. He walked her back to her couch and remained. Most beings are not self-aware when they come into existence. Kurama was, and while the experience was novel, it wouldn't recommend it. He'd returned from the pit of the damned, being trapped with that stupid Hokage. The man wasn't the worst company, but he split the fox in half, and that was just a dick move. Somehow, someone had undone the pact and they both left the Shinigama's stomach. He assumed that Minato bastard went to the Pure Land, but he had to wait for his true return. Upon it, he was greeted with wave after wave of negative emotions. He almost missed not having to suffer through that. He hadn't even done anything yet. Gaining back all of his senses, it was overwhelming. He remembered this location as the place he was sealed after spearing his former containers. And then a red-haired person appeared before him. The boy had hair like Kushina and he could sense his other half within him. The boy was weird. He couldn't sense any hate within him. Kurama had only known one person truly free of hate. Even Ashura wasn't completely free of it. Get him drunk and ask about Indra and you'd bear witness to it. Kurama had to test him to see if this was some trick. Without warning, he tried to squash the boy. Before his hand could leave the ground, he heard laughing in his ear. That wasn't very nice, Kurama, he said, truly not upset at the bijou's show of force. Would you mind going elsewhere so we can talk in private? Kurama nodded and for the second time felt himself being teleported. We're like 10 miles outside of the village. So, what's up? You are so casual with me? Have you and my other side truly formed such a bond? If you'd simply bumped fists with me, you'd have the answer to that and a lot of other questions. Instead, you tried to squish me. Not cool. Neither is ripping me in half. True. Dad could have been a tad more humane in your treatment, but I'm not him. So, what's the plan, big guy? Excuse me? Your plan. I can't release your other half without dying, so I'm sorry, but reunification will have to wait. And I wouldn't recommend staying in the Land of Fire, but I do know somewhere I can take you. That fake Madara is still out there, though I wouldn't worry too much as he's living on borrowed time. You did not mention me entering your seal. I didn't. Honestly, didn't think you would want to for any reason I could give. Also thought it'd set you off, and I'd rather you remain calm. Kurama smiled at that. That was a wise decision. If you channel my chakra, I would like to sync with my other half. Naruto leapt off Kurama and complied, creating the full chakra cloak. Orochimaru, Jiraiya, the Sandaime, Kakashi and a team of ANBU arriving just as Naruto activated the form. Even the non-sensors could feel the overwhelming presence of Naruto's chakra. Those that were sensors would describe it as endless, as if they'd been dropped into an ocean with no sense of surface nor bottom. The bijou and the container met fists, and in a flash Kurama received his Yan half's memories and impressions. Once he'd absorbed the information, he looked at the Uzumaki, as if considering him for the first time. Could he be the one his old man had spoken about? Should he help just in case he was? The debate felt moot, his Yan half's impression so strong, his belief in his friend so sincere the Yin half couldn't argue with it. He knew what he was going to do, but he would make the boy earn it. My other half has accepted you, and I will as well. But you must earn my cooperation in the same manner you earned his, without his help. I accept! Naruto shouted. He deactivated the cloak and walked over to the gathered ninja, assuming Jiraiya told them not to attack. Hey, you all need to leave! Naruto-kun, we will do no such thing. The Sandaime stated firmly. I don't have time for this. I've already beaten the Kyuubi once and I was weaker then. Besides, this one doesn't want to kill me, but it's going to be a massive fight regardless of what we do. Alright, the kids got it handled, so let's go back and run damage control. Jiraiya ordered, but no one moved, which annoyed him. Listen, not a damn one of you can fight the Kyuubi and you'd only get in the way. Minato died sealing the Kyuubi, Jiraiya! The Sandaime yelled. Minato isn't Naruto, Jiraiya responded. We'd only be in the way. Are you sure you can win? Orochimaru asked Naruto, finally speaking. Yes. It's just a spar anyway, no one's life is on the line if you all stay out of it. She accepted his reassurance, not knowing him to be arrogant or to overestimate himself. She also wouldn't deny there was a thrill in seeing her lover best the bijou by himself. I won't leave because I want to see this. Besides, if you win I might do that thing I know you want but are too shy to ask for. Naruto couldn't fight the faint blush that colored his cheeks as he muttered a quiet awesome at the prospect. Once that moment passed, he decided to propose a solution. Create a barrier. It'll help contain the damage and you can stay and watch, but you have to give us plenty of room. Naruto-kun, the Sandaime started to say. Just for once, trust me. The Sandaime didn't have the heart to continue his protest, even if every fiber of his being felt this was a mistake. He simply nodded and got into position. Kakashi put his hand on Naruto's shoulder in silent encouragement before doing the same. As for you ANBU, I'm not joking about not being in this barrier. If you get hurt, that's on you, and if I find you, I'll teleport you somewhere you don't want to be. As Naruto said that, it dawned on several people that the redhead had teleported the Kyuubi and must have known how to use the Hiraishin. They all wondered if that's why the young man was so confident. Naruto walked away from the onlookers and waited for them to get into position. In under a minute a barrier was erected, one Naruto recognized as the 4 Crimson Ray formation, something Tobirama-sama had left in his jutsu scroll. He didn't have time to be impressed as Kurama took advantage and quickly charged and fired a chakra blast, one just short of a bijou bomb. Naruto simply looked at the fast-moving energy beam and smirked. He continued to wait until he deemed the time right. Hiraishin no Jutsu version 3, he thought as he activated the technique and swapped places with Kurama. The Inkyubi having no choice but to absorb his own attack, the powerful blast managing to topple the Great Fox. Naruto was not stationary, on the move as soon as he switched with Kurama. When he was within range, he sped through hand signs performing the water-style, Great Flood Jutsu. A massive amount of water emerged, all rushing toward a still off-balanced Kurama. The fox, annoyed at being subjected to his own attack, lashed out with one of his might tails, splitting the surge of water down the middle. His vision no longer obstructed, he watched as Naruto continued chaining hand signs. On instinct, the strongest of the Bijou rolled out of the way, narrowly avoiding a two separate spiked glaciers posed to impale him. Naruto smiled. He expected his ice-style, frozen torrent to hit the fox, but it appeared his time inactive hadn't left him rusty. Kurama rushed toward Naruto. His every step shook the very earth. Mid-stride, he ran his paw against the ground, overturning rock and uprooting trees as he swung the limb toward his opponent. Naruto dashed forward, dodging the debris while creating two shadow clones. Once that was done, the original activated his lightning style, red lightning armor, and closed the distance faster than Kurama anticipated. Naruto delivered a swift kick to the fox's snout. Kurama grimaced upon impact, swatting Naruto out of the air in retaliation. The Uzumaki flew back, impacting the ground with tremendous force, a crater forming as a testament to Kurama's strength. Naruto was fine, the lightning armor able to absorb blunt force, though the rapid change in elevation was disorienting. Not wanting to allow the Uzumaki a chance to attack, the Bijou intended to pounce but was impeded by a series of steel chains wrapping themselves around him. He felt the cold steel wrap around his body, tightening with such force it was almost pulled completely to the ground. But he struggled mightily, bracing under the pull of the jutsu. The clone that performed the steel style bindings of the underworld wasn't done, and soon Kurama felt an intense shock. He refused to take his eyes off the original, so he missed the red lightning dragons traveling through the steel chains. Enduring the lightning style, ground dragon flash, and getting annoyed at being pushed by a whelp, Kurama released a chakra shockwave, stopping Naruto's forward progress. A tail strong enough to level mountains crashed toward the clone, carving a trench into the earth. The clone managed to evade the lethal appendage, replacing himself with a log. The original dropped the lightning cloak as he surveyed the land. For such a short fight, the devastation was just short of awe-inspiring. If they were on Uzushio, he'd drag it out to give Kurama some more time to be free, but maintaining a barrier can burn through one's reserves faster than they'd expect, and if Kakashi were maintaining one side, then he may be nearing his limit. He watched as the fox arose to his full height. It really was awesome. No man-made monument or structure could compare. Naruto considered how things would have been if people hadn't reflexively feared or envied the Bijou. If they were looked upon with wonder instead. Maybe one day, he thought as he prepared himself to finish this. "It's time to end this, Kurama!" he shouted, and the fox cracked a grin as he charged. Naruto met his charge, his pace increasing as his third clone dispelled, causing Naruto to slip into sage mode. He performed a sequence of hand signs Kurama knew well and hated dearly. Ox, horse, boar, snake. Wood style, wood golem jutsu. Naruto called out for effect. Kurama stopped his charge, choosing to charge a Bijou bomb instead. He truly hated all things Mokuton. However, his progress was halted when he felt himself once again teleported. This time he appeared in the sky and saw a clone on a clay bird giving him a cheeky grin. No time to even sweat at the thing as the golem grabbed the proud fox and slammed him on his back. "Sage art, gracious deity gates!" Naruto called from atop his wood construction. 9 gates appeared, crashing through the top of the barrier, each pinning a tail down to the ground. Now that the tails were controlled and Kurama was on his back, he could finish this. With but a thought, the golem loomed over Kurama and began to mercilessly tickle the mass of chakra. Kurama fought it for as long as he could be. Sooner than he'd like, he began to laugh. "Ah ha 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 ha, stop it!" he demanded, his voice deep and raspy. "You gotta give before I'll stop." "Ha ha ha, fine, ha ha ha, I give. You win, ha ha ha." As soon as Kurama conceded, Naruto stopped his assault and removed the deity gates and dispelled the wood golem. Kurama returned to his feet, now towering over the boy that had just bested him. He could see Naruto smiling, not that he won but out of enjoyment. The Kyuubi held his fist out, certain this wouldn't be a mistake. Naruto reciprocated. The Uzumaki didn't fight the sensation of being engulfed by the red, bubbling chakra. He allowed it to enter his system, and once he was all absorbed, he stood still. It didn't take long to feel both halves of Kurama become one. Naruto smiled once more. His friend was whole again and got to play for a bit. It wasn't much, certainly less than the fox deserved, but he hoped it was something. He felt Kurama's agreement. As he looked around, he witnessed his clone already repairing much of the damage done. The biggest problem being the 2 ice constructs he created. Looks like the Land of Fire is about to get a new lake, Naruto thought. The Uzumaki started walking toward the village in moments the barrier was done, and he was surrounded by the 8 onlookers. Jiraiya grabbed his godson and put him into a headlock. "See, sensei? I only train the best, and it is only the methods of the gallant Jiraiya that would allow one to stand up to the Kyuubi," the Toad Sage exclaimed, holding up a peace sign with his free hand. "Yes, Jiraiya-kun, I'm sure you showed him to secrets of the Mokuton," the Sandaime observed wryly, causing Jiraiya to deflate just a little. His concentration dipping, Naruto slipped out of the hold and pushed the larger man off him. What the hell, man? Trying to make me look uncool, Databeo. Don't be so vain, brat. Your beloved sensei has just been attacked. A good student would defend my honor. What honor, you shitty pervert? Stop bragging about stuff all the time and people wouldn't cut you down, Tabeo. The ANBU in attendance watched in disbelief as the teenager that just defeated the QB, using the Mokuton no less, bickered with one of the Sannin like school children. You know, Naruto-kun, Kakashi interrupted. Any chance you had at that spar went down the drain after what I just witnessed. Come on, Kakashi and I, don't be like that. We can keep it strictly taijutsu if you want, Naruto offered. Jiraiya's vehement head shake informed Kakashi that was still a bad idea. Ma, what about a thrilling game of rock, paper, scissors? Why are all the men in my life lame? Naruto cried in mock distress. Kukukuku, it's okay, Naruto-kun. The snake Sannin comforted, having slid right beside the red-haired shinobi. He favored her with a face-splitting grin. The Sandaime watched as the two slipped into an easy rapport. The very sight of it turned something in him sour. He thought back to Naruto's last words to him, just for once, trust me. Had that been a large part of his problem? How many people had counseled him, warned him, done all they could to deter him from continually trying to entrap his former student? Had he lost the ability to trust in the judgment of others? Had he truly become that arrogant? Consumed with his thoughts, the Sandaime didn't notice they had arrived at the village's gates. Scores of Konoha shinobi and civilians were present. The longtime Hokage watched as Naruto dodged a punch from Tsunade, retaliating with a hug and quiet words shared only between the two. He heard the last of the Senju inform Naruto several of the Hyuga were able to see and narrate the fight. She encouraged him to address the crowd, the panic having subsided. Naruto looked unsure, a sign of his lack of faith in the villagers, but Tsunade's resolve broke through. He watched as the young man took tentative steps towards the mass of people, all eyes on him. Nearly 17 years ago a tragedy befell the village. Many were lost, even more scarred physically and mentally by the event. What many didn't know was that day was supposed to be a happy one, the start of a family. It wouldn't happen. When a female Jinchuriki gives birth, her seal weakens. A man claiming to be Madara Uchiha took advantage of that time, and not even 10 minutes into the world he took me hostage. Forcing my father to protect me, this self-proclaimed Madara abducted my mother and released the Kyuubi upon the village. He then controlled the Kyuubi and made him attack. The rest most of you know. The fourth battled the Kyuubi, and in his final act he sealed half of the chakra beast into himself and half into his son, me. Naruto ignored the gasps heard throughout the crowd. The sealing jutsu my father used trapped him and his half of the Kyuubi within the stomach of the Shinigami. Somehow he was released from his eternal prison and allowed to go to the Pure Land. However, a dead person cannot contain a bijou, and the eaten half of the Kyuubi was released into the world. I didn't know how long it would take to reform. The Kyuubi had never been so injured he had to disperse. It was much faster than I anticipated. As the Hyuga clan told you, I'm sure, the free half of the Kyuubi agreed to enter the seal, and I now contain the entirety of the fox. Knowing he did not attack of his own volition may not change how any of you view him. You may not be able to forgive his deeds. I won't fault you as, truthfully, I haven't forgiven many of you either, Naruto said. Much of the attendants looked down in shame, remembering how they ostracized the fox boy. How so many looked upon him in fear or disdain, wishing he'd simply stop existing. It shamed them to think this was the son of their great hero, a man many would openly venerate in front of the boy they would make a pariah. But I don't hate you. And even when I was at my lowest, my opinion about the village at its most negative, I never wanted to harm you. I simply wanted to be free of your antipathy. For better or worse, Konoha is my home. My family, my teammates, and my sensei are here. My duty is to protect this village, and I will do so to the best of my abilities. Maybe in time we can become something more and truly embody the will of fire the Hokage of the past and present extolled. I think I'd like that. Having said his piece, Naruto took Orochimaru by the hand and teleported away. He didn't hear Tsunade, Hiruzen, and Jiraiya all confirming the parts of his story they could. He wouldn't have cared. The people either believed him, or they didn't. He just wanted to be alone. In an instant they arrived at her door and Naruto felt her tense. He turned toward her, and she looked concerned. He couldn't fathom why. Oroki-chan, what's wrong? I'm not surprised after what's happened it slipped your mind. The room Kabuto was trying to gain access to, I was going to show it to you and explain everything. If you don't want dash. I need to. You deserve to know. Just, however you respond, no, nothing I did was to hurt you. The snake Sannin felt a pair of warm lips meet her own as her cheeks were cupped. It was a short kiss. more tender than what they normally shared, but the feeling of reassurance it sparked was welcomed. "Whatever it is, it'll be okay," Naruto said. She nodded and led him to her office. She removed a book from a shelf against the back wall. The Way of Tea, Naruto realized and smiled. It was one of Anko's favorites. Orochi opened the book and placed her hand on a hidden seal, opening a secret door. Naruto continued to follow her down the stone corridor and the stairwell until they reached the bottom. She activated another seal to open yet another door, and sitting at a table was someone in a hooded robe. "I guess it's about that time," the decidedly masculine voice said. Orochimaru didn't respond to him, addressing Naruto instead. "Naruto-kun, this is Obito Uchiha, but you know him by a different name, Madara." Orochimaru didn't know what to expect, but if she were forced to guess at a response, laughter was not one of them. "All that training I did to kill you and my girlfriend, apparently, kicked your ass, Databeo," he said, pointing at the Uchiha. Even Obito had to laugh at that. Chapter 19, History. Neji Hyuga walked through the village as he grappled with new information he couldn't quite understand. Individually, he could make sense of most of it, but together it was an unsolvable puzzle. The fight between Naruto and the Kyuubi had been just within his range, and he watched as someone a year younger than him had a spar with the strongest of the legendary chakra beasts. It looked closer to a boy playing with a pet than a battle to the death. If that were not enough, if Naruto being the victorious one wasn't inexplicable by itself, the prodigy Hyuga saw the Uzumaki use two bloodline limits, Hayatan and the legendary Mokuton. How was it possible to wield several bloodline limits? Was Naruto preternaturally gifted? A result of Orochimaru's experiments? Both? While the battle with the giant fox was revealing, Naruto's words shook Neji just as much. The former branch member was able to conclude with no known heritage, but his status as a container a widely known secret. The residents of Konoha were likely unwelcoming of the boy. He recalled what the Aburame said at that get-together, and he was forced to admit the bug user had been correct. He only saw all Naruto had and never questioned what he'd lacked, what he'd lost. This left Neji perplexed. Fate was unchangeable and punished those that tried. When Neji first met the Uzumaki, he assumed him a failure, or at best mediocre. Years later, after being trained by two of the Sannin, that same boy had demonstrated he was anything but average. What Neji couldn't decide was, which was Naruto's fate? The ostracized pariah or the powerhouse? He should not have been able to go from one to the other. Winners and losers were chosen at birth, this was an unassailable fact. By lineage, Naruto was a winner. By circumstance, he was meant to be a loser. Which was fate's design? Why couldn't Neji understand it? Why couldn't he see it? How had he managed to seemingly fight fate? Or did he simply correct its altered course? The Hyuga didn't know. Hated not knowing. His all-seeing eyes meant he rarely had to languish in ignorance, but he had no conclusions, only questions. Only the mystery that was Naruto Uzumaki. While Neji was trying to resolve his crisis of faith, Tsunade was busy staring daggers at Jiraiya and Hiruzen. Back in her office, after having plopped in her chair, she couldn't bother to hide her anger and disappointment at the pair. She decided to start with Jiraiya. "What the fuck, you stupid toady asshole!" she shouted, vein bulging on her forehead. "Just because it has toad in the word doesn't mean it fits now, Haim," Jiraiya remarked. He knew calming Tsunade down wasn't possible, so it was better to just let her boil over so they could actually talk. "You dare get funny with me now? I should kick you so hard you see the curvature of the planet." "That sounds painful, don't do that," Jiraiya responded neutrally, and as soon as the words left his mouth, Tsunade's fist went through her desk, followed by her grabbing him by the collar. "You better watch it, Jiraiya. It's one thing for Sensei to be acting behind my back, I expect it, as he doesn't care about anyone's opinion but his own." She started and ignored how Hiruzen frowned at her assessment. "But I trusted you to be straight with me and respect that I am Hokage." "Tsunade, I do trust you. This wasn't an attempt to move around you. At best, I could tell you the sky would possibly fall someday at some point. And realistically, what could you have done to prepare for this that didn't end in hundreds or thousands of people dead? If any one of us would have attacked the Kyuubi, he would have retaliated in full force. If you had the idea to use Itachi or Sasuke, assuming they were comparable to Madara or that he actually managed to suppress the Kyuubi with just his Sharingan, it would have been worse. Naruto told me himself, the fox hates the Uchiha. All of them, no exceptions. Tenzo, frankly, isn't strong enough to suppress a Bijou, and the only seal users who could possibly come up with something are all redheads, and two of them fear Orochimaru more than you, the other one is sleeping with her. That last one took care of the issue, no one got hurt, and a lot of things that needed to be said were. Tsunade quickly considered his argument, and while she didn't have ready counters to most of it, it simply wasn't up to him to decide when he'd share a village-wide threat. Tsunade impressed upon Jiraiya that very fact, and he agreed and sincerely apologized. The Godaima then moved on to Hiruzen. How much of your legacy, of your remaining time, how many of your relationships are you going to ruin trying to get back at Orochi? I told you I wouldn't tolerate you working behind my back, and you turned one of my ninja into a secret asset, spying on a high-ranking member of the village. You had no right. I had every right. You didn't have to sort through the dead babies like I did. You didn't have to chase her out of the village like I did. You just support her and this twisted relationship she has with Naruto-kun. You should be protecting him instead of encouraging this farce. So, knowing she hadn't changed, I enacted a plan. It didn't work, but I'm not wrong about her. You keep pushing and it isn't her you're going to have to deal with, Jiraiya observed, recalling the earlier conversation he had with his godson. Sensei, you're going to back Naruto into a corner, and I don't know why you can't see that. I'll make this as plain as I can, he just played with the Kyuubi. It took most of the senior ninja, you, Enma, Gamabunta, Minato, and Kushina to restrain and seal it. What do you possibly think you can do to someone like that? You may think you're protecting Naruto, but he will protect Orochimaru. It's time to move on. Hiruzen was about to respond to his student but was cut off by Tsunade. Several of us have tried to talk you out of this vendetta, this quest to get her out of the village. You won't listen no matter how much it has cost you. You tried to kill her, Sensei. The daimyo could have had you executed. You had to resign in disgrace, and you'll never repair your relationship with Naruto. If I cut you out of village affairs completely, all your knowledge and experience would be wasted, but what else can I do? You're making it impossible for me to do anything but isolate you, place you under house arrest for the remainder of your days. Is that what you want? Of course not. But people don't simply change, Tsunade-chan. She's had designs on Naruto for years. Years! She's manipulated things, possibly him, for who knows how long? Do you believe they are anything approaching equals? He's an affection-starved young man and she's used her wiles to exploit his weakness. Like she did with you being the implication? Tsunade asked. Is that the story you've been telling yourself? She seduced you? How do you know she didn't? Because I'm not fucking stupid, Sensei, Tsunade yelled. She took some calming breaths, forcing her anger away. It wouldn't do to beat her sensei to death. This is getting us nowhere, but just know this is truly your final warning. Act against her again and I'll lock what's ever left of you in your compound. We still have one more issue. There is no way word won't get back to Ai and Inoki. Both men looked grim at Tsunade's words. Strength invites challenge, Jiraiya whispered, wondering if his final student was clairvoyant. What's that, Jiraiya? Something Naruto said earlier, strength invites challenge. The problem is, Naruto's known abilities simply give Inoki justification to do whatever it is he was already going to do. You likely won't know where he falls until the Chunin exams, Hiruzen remarked. Tsunade nodded in response but wished she had a better red-on-the-fence sitter. After his laughing fit ended, Naruto took a seat across from the murderer of his parents, the person that altered his very life course. Only the width of the stainless steel table separated the pair. Naruto studied the Uchiha's face. A mismatched pair of brown and green eyes would suggest someone had taken his Sharingan eyes from him. He had scarring on his face, clearly having suffered some major trauma. The man looked tired, or was it resigned, as if he had just accepted all that would come to him. The Uzumaki clan head didn't know what to say to the man. He never planned on talking to him, not even a witty remark as the man faded away. He was just going to kill him. But now, it wouldn't be unreasonable to assume he'd been subjected to some of Orochi's more questionable impulses. He looked broken, and while Naruto didn't care about his emotional state, it didn't leave him with a lot of motivation to strike the Uchiha down. Some might find it foolish that Naruto wasn't blindly driven by revenge, by all the pain this man caused him and all he took away. But to Naruto, that's exactly why he couldn't prioritize revenge. What could he do to the person that took his parents and caused the village to hate him, only to create an organization of monsters to one day hunt him down and kill him as well? To even get into the realm of retribution, Naruto reasoned, he'd have to bend the laws of space and time. True, he could just kill him now for his past actions. No one could possibly fault him, but it still felt hollow. He was prepared to neutralize a threat, and by all appearances it had been. Naruto had also felt for the Horatian marker his father had placed on the man, and it was still there. Once he'd reached for a marker, he simply didn't forget it, and this Obito person wouldn't get a normal Rasengan to the back this time. Why? Naruto finally asked. He didn't know if learning of this man's justifications would do anything but so much pain and misery. He simply had to know. The simple answer is a girl, Obito answered. If you rain destruction down on this village because you couldn't get a date, I am going to kill you. It appeared he could find the motivation after all. Obito raised his arms in mock surrender. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I didn't, despite what many may think. It was one of my genin teammates, along with Kakashi. You were one of my father's students? Naruto asked in surprise. He hadn't known that. Yes. Rin, my teammate, wasn't just some girl I had a crush on. For context, the Uchiha were not a well-liked clan during my childhood, and even amongst the Uchiha I was considered an oddball and a failure. I learned early that life could be mindlessly cruel. You know what, just hold out your fist, this will go faster, Naruto suggested as he became engulfed in Kurama's chakra cloak. The two men bumped fists and Naruto saw it all. Obito's childhood, his affection for and friendship with Rin and rivalry with Kakashi. He saw how much the Uchiha respected his father, and how he helped him deal with the frustrations of being in Kakashi's shadow. He saw the disastrous mission and the aftermath. He saw the real Madara play head games, and he watched Rin sacrifice herself. The emotion of the world coming apart at the seams was not one he could easily relate to. It was all-encompassing and infinite. Naruto watched the real Madara take a broken boy and warp him, shattering or perverting everything Obito believed in. He saw a boy become a young man, having given up on this world as meaningless. He watched the fateful night as master unknowingly squared off against student, and all the years after. The change of the Akatsuki, the havoc done to Kiri. It was a tale of misery and violence that left near everyone worse off in their wake. As the link was severed, Naruto deactivated the chakra mode and gathered himself. She made it all make sense. Yes. I believed the world could be good because she existed in it. Madara twisted me to his cause so thoroughly that any thought that what I was doing was dishonoring her never entered my mind. This world wasn't real, so none of it mattered, Obito explained. It was Orochimaru that helped me come to the realization that Madara likely set me up to see Rin die, knowing it'd cause me to give up on everything. Naruto sat in silence, mulling over this new information. Obito had been a lonely kid that just wanted acknowledgement, and that was an incredibly familiar feeling. The Uzumaki couldn't ignore how the young man, a child still, was broken and manipulated by one of the greatest ninja to ever live. How he thought he was helping people to never truly experience what he had. Naruto couldn't relate to that level of despair, but he knew how hard he took it when he learned of Hinata's death, and they hadn't been friends for years. Pain begets pain. He'd seen it with Obito, and even if she'd never admit it, Orochi-chan was caught in this cycle. Jiraiya wasn't wrong about the cycle of hatred. Revenge, the futile desire to even some non-existent cosmic balance when someone hurts you. Naruto never considered himself vengeful, but that was before he had to face himself, his long-buried hatred. A few different situations and he'd be what Obito was, someone with the justification to harm others and the permission to never feel guilty about it. So what now? The special Jounin asked. Obito seemed surprised by the question, if the widening of his eyes were a reliable tell. I honestly don't know. I assumed you'd kill me without a second thought for what I'd done to you. Killing you wouldn't bring my parents back nor give me a happy childhood. Doesn't mean I forgive you or anything like that, but you dead does nothing for me. And I don't know if there is redemption for you, but there really isn't if you're dead. There isn't. Everything I've done, there's just no coming back from that. I accept it. The irony is that I was so dedicated to seeing Rin again in this world, I assured I won't in the next. No torture devised hurts more than that. Naruto wanted to tell Obito he was wrong, if not for the sake of the Uchiha then his own. He wanted to believe there was a chance to redeem, to make amends as long as you were alive to do so. But that inclination warred with the slights of his past. He hadn't forgiven the villagers, he hadn't forgiven the old man, and even with this new information he wasn't sure how he could truly forgive Obito. He didn't hate any of these parties, but true forgiveness and acceptance was a long way off. Questions with no easy answers swirled in his mind as he responded. I am credited with ending a rebellion in Iron Country. The chief architect, Ito Watanabe, trained me for a little while I was there. He spoke a lot about his late daughter, Retsu, often. How when she was little she would proclaim she'd be the first female samurai of Iron Country. He said she was brave and headstrong. She wanted to choose her own destiny and not accept the rigid role assigned to her. They argued a lot about that, and he remained steadfast in his refusal to train her. He told me a lot about her but only revealed how she died the night before he rebelled. Some students he kicked out of the service paid him back by raping and killing her. Now, even with training, there was no guarantee that she would have survived, but with no training it was a certainty she wouldn't. It left him broken and he all but retired from his post, only training a select few students in a private school, Mifune allowing them to test into official service. He also became a champion for a more equal Iron Country, so much so it put him on the outs with Mifune. As he told me about his daughter's life, demise, and his change of heart, he also confessed the tremendous guilt he carried. He asked why did he have to lose his daughter to finally see her point. The next day I'm escorting Mifyune's granddaughter, Tomo, and we get surrounded by dozens of Ito's former and current students. They calmly say they deposing Mifyune, and as an outsider I can walk away. The subtext being that they were going to kill Tomo. Backward-ass country. If they couldn't defeat Mifyune outright, they were going to try to shame him into ritual suicide for failing to protect his family. So, here I was with a decision, allowed this one innocent to be sacrificed for the potential of granting liberty and self-determination to countless others. I'm assuming you didn't leave her. I killed them all. But ninja arts are outlawed in Iron Country. Even in defense of his granddaughter you'd have been arrested. Didn't use any ninja arts, just my sword. Anyway, after getting her protected, I tracked down Ito and we had a duel. What struck me was his smile, even as he lay dying. It makes me wonder if he knew this was the likely outcome. If I hadn't been willing to sacrifice one person, then he'd put me in the position to sacrifice many. Officially, I am a hero, but how many people see me as just another tool of their oppression? More concretely, how many more Retsas will there be because I intervened and protected Tomo? You can't think like that, Obito cautioned. You can't carry that weight. I never learned to harden my heart, and it shattered when Rin died. I became a monster. But it's all linked. An endless web of action and consequence. That's mostly beside my point anyway. For some I am a hero. For others, possibly a villain. But the truth? Tomo's governess turned attendant poisoned me earlier, the effects only kicking in once the fighting started. For most of it, I wasn't even seeing Tomo anymore, not that I realized it at the time. Thanks to Kurama, the poison wasn't going to kill me, but it was a bitch of a handicap. So, not a hero. Not a villain. I was just a drugged 15-year-old doing the best I could. And that's probably the truth for all of us. We are either the best nor the worst things we've ever done. You may believe redemption is impossible, and maybe it is. But wouldn't it be worth it to try to get as close to it as you can? Do as much good as possible to rebalance the scales? Naruto asked with a shrug. Whatever you land on, at least talk to Kakashi first. He deserves that much. Obito nodded and Naruto got up to depart, Orochimaru still standing in the doorway. As Naruto reached the exit, Obito asked a question. How did you find out you were hallucinating? You said you weren't even aware of it, so how did you come to realize it? The next day Tomo came to bid Jiraiya and I farewell, either wanting to stick around. As we were saying our goodbyes, she asked me if I were really okay to travel. I assured her I was, but she didn't seem to believe me, so I asked why. She said that during the fight my attempts to be reassuring were a mixed bag because I was calling her some other girl's name. Naruto and Orochimaru departed, the mood quite somber. In an attempt to lighten the vibe, Orochi slides next to Naruto and kisses his cheek. Startled, Naruto asks, "What was that for?" "Because clearly I was the woman you were hallucinating about." "Kukuku, my Naruto-kun is so gallant. Keep it up and I might swoon one day." Naruto chuckled before saying, "The one time I attempted to protect you I failed miserably and got my ass handed to me." "It's the thought that counts," Orochi responded. "You don't actually believe that?" Naruto observed, finally eliciting a laugh from her. "No, but it sounded good." The couple returned to silence as they returned to her study. Once everything was sealed, Orochi led Naruto to her living room, both taking a seat on her couch. "I know you may have more questions," she started. "Like the pair of Sharingan you've been hiding? Certainly makes me feel better you tore through my genjutsu," Naruto said as he tickled her side. He didn't really care she had them. "I only implanted one into myself just in case you ever wanted an upgrade as well. But not just that." Orochi paused. She wasn't used to feeling uneasy about things, but she had to admit it to herself. She cared what Naruto thought of her, and while she was confident she knew what lines not to cross, even a hint of disappointment would affect her more than she liked. "If I wasn't the person you were seeing in your poisoned state, then giving the timing I can guess who it was, so let's start there. Naruto-kun, Hinata's alive. How does anyone stand this heat?" Tsunade questioned as she and her party neared the entrance of Suna. The weeks since the second Kyuubi incident had passed in a blink of the eye. Things in the village returned to normal, except for the rise of a new celebrity in Naruto. Speaking of her nephew, as punishment for withholding information about the Kyuubi, she lowered the price for his instruction. Anyone with the equivalent payout of AD rank mission could get the son of the Yondaime to teach them Nin, Gen, Ken, or Taijutsu, and he could not use shadow clones to fulfill the requests, nor shortchange Hanabi. True, she only keep it at that price point for 3 weeks, but the lesson was learned. "You can regulate your body temperature, so you're only complaining about the idea of the heat, Tsunade-chan," Orochi pointed out teasingly. She and Kakashi were covered in tan, lightweight cloaks and shimok. Tsunade was in traditional red and white Hokage robes with the diamond-shaped hat to match. The Godaime ignored her friend, feeling it was her right to complain about the desert heat regardless of how affected she actually was by it. The trio approached the valley entrance and were greeted by Temari. After an exchange of pleasantries and a security check, they were escorted to the arena. Orochi noticed the village was in much better condition compared to the last time she was here. What really stood out was a lush and green oasis with fruit-bearing trees and various ponds. It was, apparently, treated as a playground as children were seen throughout. Tsunade noticed the environmental anomaly as well. I haven't been inside Suna in a number of years, but that oasis looks newish, Temari-san. Oh yes, Godaime-sama. It was a gift to Suna. Who could gift such a thing? The Godaime inquired. No one but Kazekage-sama knows. It simply appeared one night. Kazekage-sama said it was from a personal friend and left it at that. That wasn't remotely true. Everyone in Suna knew who made it, just like they all knew who Gaara's only acknowledged friend was, but unlike some villages, the residents of Suna knew how to keep their mouths closed. Arriving to the arena, Temari walked the Konoha Nin to location of the other Kage. The area was open except for a sandstone ceiling, offering shade and temperature control. Temari introduced Tsunade and took her position behind Gaara, along with Baki. All 5 Kage were in attendance, Gaara and Tsunade having worked out her arriving last. It was meant to send a subtle message that Gaara didn't require his closest ally in attendance with the other Kage present, as the young wind shadow stood on his own. Tsunade took her seat as her party got into position, having removed their travel wear. You cut it awfully close, Tsunadeheim, Anoki said, a mocking tone to his voice. That's the arrogance of Konoha ninja. Even the pissy brat genin have it while having accomplished nothing. I barked, his head resting on top one of his hands. Tsunade chose to ignore the Raikage. I'm sure you understand a ninja should neither be too early nor too late, Sachikage Dano. Tsunade responded. The fence-sitter said nothing in retort. I have to admit, Tsunade-sama, I am disappointed your delegation didn't include Naruto Uzumaki. I understand him to have several treasures of Kiri and would love to work out a fair exchange. Item by item if need be. The Godaime Mizukage purred. Tsunade could sense a slight tensing behind her and hoped Orochimaru wouldn't reveal herself to be a jealous girlfriend now of all times. I hear the brat isn't allowed out of the sights of Jiraiya. How that boy going to ever be a man if you keep a minder on him? I am sure Naruto would be flattered by your interest in his development, Raikage Dano. As far as these Kiri treasures, I know not of what you speak, but if you would like to present a formal request I will, of course, give it all due consideration, Mizukage Dano. Mei simply smiled, having gotten the answer she expected. I tightened his grip on his chair and clenched his jaw, angered at having been dismissed again. Although, I also hear whispers that he has the most potential of any shinobi of any village since the Shodai Hokage himself. Defeated the very Kyuubi Minato was said to have killed with no help from anyone. Konoha is just a factory for genius ninja. Was there a point, Raikage Dano? Just remarking on your village's ability to churn out bullshit Superman stories about your alleged prodigies while you hide them away. At least Minato was out in the field so I could take his measure. Kukuku, from my understanding it was Minato-kun who took yours. Orochimaru retorted, much to the ire of Kyumo's leader. Whatever stories you may have heard and however they have come to be, you must choose for yourself whether or not to believe them. We in Konoha like to concern ourselves with ourselves. Tsunade added. History would tell another story. Anoki countered, referencing Konoha's participation in all 3 shinobi wars. With the exchange having died down, Gaara called an official start to the finals. As the 5 shadows of the ninja world watched a proxy for war, several could only think about the real thing. And while they were preoccupied with the thoughts of war, their seconds were vigilant for any signs of aggression. All except one. The most infamous woman in the hidden villages wasn't concerned with war or children exchanging love taps. She only wanted to get this trip over with so she could share the good news. Tsunade confirmed herself, 8 weeks along. Naruto-kun would have an heir, a child of his own. And she'd tap into previously unexplored reserves of cruelty and sadism if anyone should attempt to harm his child. It was a promise of a lifetime. Chapter 20, Break You Off. Frail and defeated were a far cry from how Shino had started his day. He was so confident in his victory that Konoha would burn under his superior might, intelligence, and technology. It had all gone so smoothly it felt like fate. And thanks to Zetsu, he even had enough information to reliably target Uzumaki Naruto and Uchiha Sasuke. His longtime associate never revealed why he wanted them to die in particular, but it didn't matter, as he was going to have as many Konoha killed as possible anyway. It all went wrong. The Sky Fortress was infiltrated and his ninja killed before initial takeoff. The Uzumaki and a Hyuga took turns dismantling him, showing him that rapid regeneration wasn't always a boon. He was stabbed and cut repeatedly. Burned. Electrocuted. Drowned. Made paralyzed by gentle fist strikes. The Uzumaki sealed the Zero Tails as if it were a mere academy exercise. With the Zero Tails gone and his chakra system compromised, Shino had to suffer through a genjutsu of being torn apart by panthers under a blood-red moon. His current location was interrogation as, he assumed, the village's best went to work. He'd already given up Ai and Zetsu's involvement. He didn't know what more they wanted, but the purple-haired woman just wouldn't leave him be. He was so tired and his once muscular frame had withered to near nothingness. "What more do you want?" he asked. "Oh, I'm just curious about something. Seems like you could have been taken in without much fuss, but those two boys worked you over. So, what did you do to piss one or both of them off?" Shino groaned at the memory. A piece of intel Zetsu had given him about the Uzumaki's relationship with his former associate, Orochimaru. He goaded the boy, suggesting there was more to their relationship than was true. By the time he said she'd do anything for an immortality jutsu, he felt a sword through his heart. He dropped to the ground in shock, and when he looked up, those blue eyes weren't even angry. They were filled with pity. The Uzumaki then said something to the Hyuga about assholes always making things personal and never knowing when to shut up. Shino was a smart man and had no intention of repeating what he said to Orochimaru's sadistic student. Anko laughed at his silence as she resolved to get the full story from Naruto when he got back. "Kirabi?" Yujito called, attempting to get her fellow Jinchuriki's attention. He seemed, not distracted but lost or in a state of disbelief. They were currently in the land of rivers, as B insisted they come support Raikage-sama's planned ambush. It was unusual for him to be so serious. Yo, where's Big Bro's main man to carry out the master plan?" he inquired. She couldn't answer that as Dodai should have been here, along with the 100 other ninja assigned. But there were also no signs of combat. The scene looked undisturbed. Pristine. Almost perfect. She looked at Kirabi in shock as the real meaning of his question sank in. "You think Konoha and Osuna intercepted Dodai's ambush and cleaned up to this extent?" Mr. 9-0 applied the pressure and let the pipe burst, treated our best like they were light work. Mighty 8 senses his bro, the Uzumaki's a pro. Yujito scowled at some of her comrades seemingly being wiped out by one boy without a trace. It made everything Aisama said about him seem true. Konoha had prepped a secret weapon with a grudge against Kumo. It also suggested the attack on Konoha failed, or the Uzumaki would have been otherwise occupied. They had tipped their hand and were now fully exposed. "Do we try to catch him?" Yujito asked. B didn't answer immediately as he mulled over their options. Crossing into the land of wind would be seen as an act of war, and while they had all but declared as much against Konoha, they had not with Suna. However, if his brother learned the ambush failed and Dodai was killed, he would react with pure emotion, namely rage. He didn't know if his brother could best 2 of the Sannin and Hatake Kakashi, but he knew he couldn't handle all 3 of the Konoha's Jinchuriki. It wasn't even about which was the smart move, there were none. But deciding the least bad option. A sense of dread originated in his stomach and spread ever so slowly throughout his body. Be feared today may be a watershed, that something irrevocable may happen. If that were the case, then he needed to be by his brother's side because whatever his faults, that was still his family. "We creep on the low but push hard in case Big Bro blows." Yujito nodded and the pair departed without further delay. I noticed Sure subtly stiffen. A sigh, his Senor Nin had become alerted to something concerning. The second of his escort duo was no coward, so for something to worry him, even slightly, was worth paying attention to. A low-level drone pulled away the Kazekage's sister, the snake Sannin following behind her. He felt the need to at least mention this, as if this were a hit, he'd let them know they'd hidden it poorly. Anoki was simply quicker. My, the 2 allied nations' escorts seem to be departing. One might assume something nefarious, Kazekage-dano. I assure you I wish none here any harm. And you, Tsunadeheim? You allowed the snake free rein, should we ready for battle? If you aren't always ready for battle, Anoki-dano, I'd suggest you retire. Any follow-up response by Anoki was cut off by the snicker of the Mizukage and the return of the Kazekage's sister and Orochimaru, the snake Sannin smiling from ear to ear. The wind mistress approached Gaara, whispering something I could not hear, and watched the child Kage nod. The girl departed briefly but returned with a guest in tow. Uzumaki Naruto. It was Ai's turn to stiffen. The attack on Konoha was scheduled for today, and he was sure the brat hadn't been allowed out of the village since his return. Either Shino crossed him or something went wrong. Honestly, I just wanted the delusional man to cause a lot of structural damage, so he hoped the fool managed that. No, what truly concerned him was the contingent of 100 Jonin shinobi he had stationed in the land of rivers led by his attendant, Dodai. The boy didn't have a scratch on him, and while that could be explained as far as wounds, even his clothes were pristine. I gritted his teeth. It was highly unlikely he managed to avoid his ninja. More than likely Minato's bastard killed them, and then strolled into Suna as if nothing had occurred. I took the briefest moment to acknowledge the sacrifice of his ninja and the loss of his loyal companion. Dodai would be dearly missed. I was afforded this show of reverence, even if hidden, because all eyes drifted to the red-haired shinobi. They watched as Gaara stood up and greeted his fellow container as a friend and an equal, a handshake and a half-hug followed by words of welcome. Naruto greeted the rest of the Kage, begging their forgiveness for the intrusion. With no additional seating, Kankuro offered his place and left the viewing area. I finally took a good look at the young man, not having seen any updated pictures of him besides what Raza provided. Jiraiya had been maddeningly efficient in neutralizing all of ICE intelligence agents, killing each one until I simply stopped sending them. The Toad Sannin hadn't lost a step, and it frustrated the Raikage greatly. Decent height for his age, toned but nothing too impressive. The boy had too much of his mother in him, looking very little like his rival in speed. But what I noticed, and detested the most, was the boy's ease. All 5 Kage and this child that has never seen true war stands amongst them as an unspoken equal. The very thought made the Raikage's blood boil. Then I remembered Dodai. He was too seasoned to believe his man wasn't dead, killed by a mere child who now stands in the same room as I, as if he's done nothing. Or as if I could do nothing to him. Arrogant. Gallingly arrogant. I barely pays attention to the rest of the exams. Children's slap boxing holds no interest. He needed an outlet for his rage and grief. He needed to take action, but his current circumstances demanded he temper his natural inclinations. The exams ended and the boy Kage gave a speech before closing out the ceremonies. I was ushered into what passed for quality accommodations in Suna. The Sand Rat had requested the Kage and their parties attend a banquet before they departed, starting 2 hours after the end of the exams. He needed to think, he needed to plan. Naruto gave Tsunade, Orochimaru, and Kakashi a full accounting of events that transpired to bring him to Suna, and the Godaime was furious at herself for believing I would attack Oto first. It was too indirect for him, and she'd been too clever by half and put her village at risk. Had I for both planned attacks? And for her favorite Gaki? She saw it in his eyes, the kind of tired that wasn't of the body nor the mind. Just the weight of death, and having delivered a great deal of it. Few truly knew what that felt like. Even fewer knew what it was to be able to kill some of the best of the elemental nations before they could even attempt to fight, surrender, run away, or call for help. With all the training they do to perfect being assassins, striking enemies where they are most vulnerable, there is still something about the challenge of a fight that gives one a sense of honor, of humanity. When that challenge is gone, you can start to feel like a butcher. She'd seen that look on Jiraiya's face before he took in the Ame trio. She'd seen it in her own eyes. "Are you okay?" she heard Kakashi ask. Naruto initially shrugged in response, but the 5 eyes on him demanded an actual response. "It is what it is. They were there for a tussle, they got one. I'm not going to sink into the pits of despair over it," Naruto said, pouring himself a glass of water. All watched as a layer of frost enveloped the glass before he took a drink. Tsunade knew that wasn't really the truth, and yet, it wasn't a lie but a resolution to endure. "More importantly, what is to be done about I?" "That could get messy," Kakashi added, but didn't disagree. I played his hand and was exposed that didn't go unpunished. "I can do it clean, and being in 2 places at once is no problem," Naruto said after taking another drink, savoring the cold liquid. "No chance for an ambush, sure as a censor. He made you before any of us knew you were here," said Kakashi. "That's fine. Besides, I knows. If what I've been told about him is true, he'll want to show it down, so the censor will do half my job for me. I could go as additional backup," Orochi offered. "No," Tsunade said, voice firm indicating there would be no argument. "Orochi, I need you with me as we go back with our participants." The 2 males in the room could tell that wasn't the whole truth, but let it drop when Orochimaru didn't protest. "So, do I have the all clear? Let's see how this dinner plays out. If Iwa has sided with Kumo, they may reveal it there. If so, Inoki needs to also be dealt with. Could you handle that, Naruto?" "Yes." "What's wrong, old man?" Kuratsuchi asked. Her grandfather had been pacing since they entered their suite and hadn't stopped. She'd withheld asking until the rooms were thoroughly swept, and she was reasonably sure it was safe to speak. "I was angered when the Uzumaki joined us. That by itself means very little. The man has been preparing for war against Konoha and using Minato's boy as a propaganda tool from the start. No, it wasn't the anger that vexes me. Inoki explained as he continued to pace. He thought back to Ice's expression, the slight widening of the eyes, rapid blinking followed thereafter. Then the anger sat in. Of all the sitting Kage, he was the worst at hiding his emotions, having always led by strength and strength alone. He was surprised. Before anything else, he was surprised the boy was there. That's not so shocking, Inoki-sama. You don't expect a Jinchuriki to just show up somewhere, Akatsuchi reasoned. No, I don't think that's it. It is well known the Kazekage and the Uzumaki are friends. I think I has something planned and the boy being here jeopardizes it. There may be an opportunity here. If Ice's little scheme fails, then it is possible he will fall. If he dies, that increases our bargaining power, and we could cut a great deal with the newest Raikage. If any or all of the Konoha party dies, then it's war and we let the two fight it out and potentially pick the scraps. Maybe an alliance with Kiri to target the weakest village. Maybe Atsuna as well. If both I and the Namikaze Hellspawn were to perish, then wouldn't that just be a reason to celebrate? Both villages dropping in power and prestige. A power vacuum would serve us well. Set us up nicely for the future. The old man muttered. Yeah, but what if the entire Kumo delegation dies? Then the new Raikage would likely be that insufferable Karabi, and he isn't fit for the job but also won't be moved to fight out a vengeance. We need Dari to survive. We really need to get our intelligence network up to par, Mei said in frustration. Like the other Kage, she saw Ice's reaction and knew something was awry. The problem was, what information she had was so sparse she could do little but speculate. And while it wouldn't serve her to be ignorant of the tensions of the other villages, it was of no great value to get involved. Kiri wasn't weak, but it was not the time to test its hard-won stability, not unless absolutely necessary. Maybe there would be a play, some advantage to exploit, but from where Mei sat, doing nothing was the correct course for now. Things may come to a head tonight. Stay diligent, but do not make unnecessary moves. Let these mainlanders handle their own problems. As of right now, none of them are active threats to Kiri. The Uzumaki clan head with several of our famed swords suggests otherwise, Mei-sama, Ao remarked. Or I could challenge him, Masama, Chojuro offered. Why use violence when words will suffice, Chojuro-kun? And Ao, I doubt he holds a grudge for actions committed generations before he was ever born. He wasn't raised in Uzumaki, so he wasn't taught to hate us, I bet. If something does happen, Mei-sama, what would you have us do? Chojuro asked. Nothing, stay out of it. And until something does happen, we will match the graciousness shown to us by our host. I was pacing across the room, and that was never a good sign. His heavy footsteps adding a slight tremor to the ground. Now free of enemy eyes, the large Kage was venting his anger with abandon. The little shit! He yelled as he clenched his fists. He killed Dodai, killed our ambush unit. Son of a whore. And now they plot. I guarantee they are planning to take us out. Isama, we don't know Dodai is dead. We don't know anything. Maybe he used the Haration to get here and left before the attack on Konoha ever started. You don't even believe that? I bellowed to his second-in-command. Darui merely adjusted in his seat. I wasn't wrong, he didn't believe that, but it was also true they had no confirmation about anything. He was simply advising restraint. Raikage-sama, we're currently at a disadvantage and we have to assume the Konoha contingent plans to act. Maybe we should slip out tonight and not give them the chance. Sure suggested. Run! I yelled. You expect me to run from them? Yes, run. Because this isn't about your ego. Darui cut in, losing his patience. You said you'd lead Kumo to greater heights, that we'd finally be free to be what we were always meant to be. Fine then, but you have to be alive. Revenge will have to wait. You never understood, Darui. You're so used to the status quo you can't even see the effects. I'm done letting Konoha decide. I'm done tailoring my actions to them. Kumo is the strongest village, I am the strongest Kage, and when I say I will avenge my ninja, I will do so. Tsunade, Orochimaru, Kakashi, and the brat die. It's just that simple. But you two will leave tonight along with our participants. Don't stop, don't look back. Gaara quickly read over the note that was delivered to him by the panther cub. His facial expression remained passive, betraying none of his thoughts. It wasn't good. He'd hoped this could be the start of something different, a break from the cycle of bloodletting that only justified more of the same. But I had attempted to attack Konoha, planned to assassinate Tsunade and company. That couldn't be overlooked, especially not by Konoha. Known as the peaceful village, they still had to remind the other villages their cooperative streak had limits. Thank you, little one, Gaara said as he scratched the summons under its chin, gaining a purr in response. The courier dispelled and Gaara turned to his siblings and explained the contents of the letter. Whatever is to happen won't happen here, of that I am certain, but it appears we must ready for war in earnest. Temari and Kankuro both frowned. War was such a heavy word and an experience none of the trio had, something that could not be said for the other major villages. Training and education can take one far, but they knew there were limitations, and this was not something you generally wanted to do while learning on the job. Shit! Kankuro exclaimed. Is there a way out, a way to resolve this? Gaara shook his head. Even if I were willing to deal, and there would be no reason for Tsunade to believe it nor ignore what he'd been planning. Unless he was willing to submit a significant form of restitution, but it was highly unlikely. Gaara would continue on, however. Maybe things wouldn't change tonight, but it could be a step toward progress. We only have about an hour before dinner is to begin. If you would both oversee the final arrangements, I need to finalize my own. His siblings acquiesced and departed Gaara's office. The hour quickly passed and the Gakage and their guards, plus Naruto, were seated at the large circular table as several servers and service whites brought out the first course of the kaiseki. As the appetizers were sat and the wait staff exited, all waited as Gaara shared some words. I appreciate you all for indulging my request and not immediately returning to your villages. For too long, the 5 great shinobi villages have been separated and mistrustful, only forging alliances to better fight our wars. I do not believe that can be solved over one meal, but I hope it can, and you will allow it to be a start. The grudges of old limit us. With that being said, please enjoy. Murmurs of appreciation filled the room, then the attendees began their meals in earnest. May was surprised by the colorful array of small dishes arranged on her plate, having assumed the desert village wouldn't be so bountiful. More courses were brought out as polite conversation was had. This seemed to offend Ai as he decided during the Fudamono course to speak for the first time. So you want to cement our stagnation into an alliance, Kazekage? Everyone took notice of his disrespect. If we are stagnating, how could continuing to do as we've done solve it? Gaara asked, choosing to ignore the slight. That's simple, we allow the strong to prove out and rule. Because strength is what determines our course. Not politics and backroom trade deals. Power, the ability to make one act against their own interests outside of their own volition. Everything else is just window dressing. Sounds like chaos, the weak constantly seeking to unseat the strong. How would that be an improvement, Raikage-sama? Mei asked. If you can't control your people, you shouldn't lead your people. If you can't keep your village, you shouldn't have it. In the warring clans era, we lost the weaker clans. And all the potential within them, not to mention all the talent untapped by non-clan ninja. Romanticizing the past doesn't help us progress, Tsunade said. Kukuku, besides, by that logic Konoha should be the only remaining hidden village. Would you have preferred us to have slaughtered all of Kumo? Orochimaru added and took delight in Ai's frown. You would have failed if you tried, but what came of any of the wars we waged? Nothing. Nothing fundamentally changed because Konoha will only allow their vision of growth while stamping down anything that threatens it. You win wars because you fight to outlast your enemy, not actually defeat them. The Sandaime called off Minato when he had Iwa under his sandals. And what, you expect to do something similar with his bastard? I finished by staring at Naruto, a Naruto more interested in his soup than the ravings of a soon-to-be dead man. Can he even speak without permission? If you think he has what Minato had, you're deluded. You're very loud. So he does speak. Tell me, boy, do you think you are your father's equal? I honestly don't see how that's a concern of someone who decidedly wasn't my father's equal. 9 may not equal 10, but it's still greater than 7 last I checked. Darui and Shur tensed when they saw the scowl on Ai's face. The man looked ready to attack. And in truth, he wanted to. I wanted to say damn the consequences and murder the arrogant brat. Kill each of them, let them see how powerless they would be against his lightning armor and his speed. But now wasn't the time. He couldn't enjoy it here. It's interesting you say that, as in a different world I could have been your father. How about that? Matter of fact, I'll sign a peace treaty right now if you call me Ota-sama. Come on, say it. Naruto took it as a sign of maturity that he hadn't murdered Darui, and Shur as a matter of reflex. He considered it a mark of personal growth. Oh, he was furious. That this man would call attention to the attempted kidnapping, that would have no doubt led to repeated bouts of sexual violation, to goad him was beyond anger-inducing. But he had his mission, and it was not the time to act. However, I would have to be punished. Somewhat surprising you don't have a child of your own, a man of your age. I guess manners weren't the only thing Dodai failed to teach you. Maybe he can try again once you return to Kumo. I didn't know what angered him more, the boy having the balls to taunt him, or the bored look the little bastard was giving him as he said it. I felt a hand on his shoulder just as his rage was nearing its zenith. He turned and saw Darui trying to silently communicate an obvious truth. It wasn't the time. But it would be soon. He'd put the Uzumaki through the ringer and show him what a true Kage fought like. Then he'd end his life and the rest of them. Eventually, all of Konoha. None of them were a match for B and him. Only the surety of his future victory stayed his hand. The boy would have one last night. His discourteousness aside, the Raikage has a point. Shinobi alliance work when there is a mutual enemy, not when created to avoid one. The very idea that any of us would permanently join some kind of agreement that reduced our authority for some nebulous benefit in the future is absurd. I don't like war, I've seen more of it than any in this room, but words are cheap. Our actions are what carry real value, and if it must be war, then it must. Getting too comfortable in an alliance is just asking to be taken advantage of eventually. If you lack honor, you cannot see it in others, Anoki Dano. Tsunade said. Our actions only carry weight because of the death we cause, no more and no less. If you treat an agreement as just a maneuver, then that's all it can be. The question is, what do you want specifically? And how can war gain it? I want an end to Konoha's continental hegemonic order, I said. Good luck with that, Tsunade said with a snort. Soon talks cooled down and returned to polite topics, but the tension never fully left, as all knew one wrong word could spark conflict. Fortunately, the dinner ended without incident, and all returned to their rooms. Well, all but one, as Kakashi was currently looking at a closed, locked and sealed door to what was to be his room for the night. It had been unyouthfully commandeered by Naruto and Orochimaru, either making a secret of what was to transpire. Kakashi rubbed the back of his head and looked toward Tsunade, who only rolled her eyes. Fine, brat, but don't get any ideas or you'll be introduced to a game I call Kakashi Ball. Got it? She said as she entered her room, Kakashi not far behind. Ma, Tsunade-sama, I would never try anything untoward. You'll be taking the couch. I wouldn't have it any other way. As Tsunade and Kakashi were settling into their temporary arrangement, Orochi pushed her lover against the door as soon as she was sure their privacy was protected. Eagerly, she pulled him down into a kiss, briefly realizing he'd grown a little. Her finger assaulted his clothing, she dispatching it with the same ruthless efficiency she would any other enemy that stood in her way. His armor, shirt, and mesh were quickly removed before he returned the favor, or removing her kimono. A blink of an eye, or at least that's how long it felt before they were in the shower, exchanged long kisses and exploring each other's bodies. Until Naruto settled on her most sensitive area, going over it in slow, circular motions with his middle finger. Gradually the speed and pressure would increase until she was experienced her first climax of the night. Time went hazy again as she came down from her orgasm, as they were now in bed. Naruto was content to pay further attention to the same area, this time utilizing his tongue as Orochi ran her fingers through his crimson locks. And again she was brought to climax, the events of the night decidedly not in her original plan, as she was to be in control. But it was a wonderful derailment, and she'd have allowed it to continue if not for the cocky grin adorning her lover's face. That simply wouldn't do. Lying on his chest, Orochi heard Naruto chuckle at seemingly nothing. She looked up, her yellow orbs expressing the unasked question. Naruto, looking down at her, understood. I love you, you know, he said, and laughed again when she went wide-eyed. I'm not saying it so you will or for any reason other than it's the truth, and I want you to know, Tebeo, he assured her. Even with his reassurance, Orochi was thrown for a loop. She never thought of her relationships in terms of love. Sure, she'd do anything for Tsunade and Kohara as they would do the same for her and helped her when she was younger manage her impulses. Was that love? They never said it. Had they assumed she knew or that she wouldn't care? But even in comparison, she knew Naruto was different. The potential life growing in her womb was a testament to that. Was that love? She'd known for some time he'd be hers, that he was already interested only eased things along. He was to be hers, and in exchange, she'd see to his happiness and the safety of what he valued. It was a perk of not fighting his fate. Yes, he made her happy. He challenged her to grow, to consider things in ways she'd never have before. Even Jiraiya's crappy belief in peace sounds more reasonable coming from Naruto. Yes, his smile often makes her feel funny, and when hugs her from behind and lightly kisses her neck her pulse would quicken. Those were just biological responses. Sure, she could enjoy his company even if they were just quietly reading, her feet propped up on his lap. And yes, she'd willingly subject her body to the trauma that is pregnancy to give him a child. But that was only because she was high. Orochi's thought process halted. Did she really see herself that way? She'd need to talk to Tsunade, she was sappy and would know. Besides, it was time to share the good news. Naruto-kun, can you enter Sage Mode? She requested. He nodded, having given her time to sort out her thoughts and not taking her silence personally at all. As if he were born to it, Naruto allowed the surrounding natural energy to enter his chakra system, instantly balancing it with his own source of power. For one who has never experienced Sage Mode, it was almost indescribable, the sensation of being connected to and aware of life. Its beauty, its flaws, and all the complexities therein. And it happened so fast, the serene mindset allowed a sage to not be overwhelmed by the onslaught of new information. Taking a deep breath, Naruto narrowed his focus to his immediate surroundings, to Orochi and himself, and a partial presence. Not fully life, slighter. Like Kurenai-sensei when he remotely checks on her, but even fainter. Naruto was now the one to go wide-eyed as his toad-like eyes stared into Orochi's slitted pupils. She nodded at his unasked question and found herself in a tight embrace, though not enough to cause any pain, with her maelstrom thanking her. "How far are you along? Is this why Oba-chan didn't want you to come with me to Face Eye? When can we know the sex?" "Kukuku, calm down, Naruto-kun," she said, not having seen him this excited since before his training trip. 8 weeks, yes, another 8 to 12 weeks. This is so awesome. I can't wait to tell Shika, Shino, and Kurenai-sensei, although, can we wait until after she has her baby? I don't want to steal her thunder to Bayo. Of course, Naruto-kun. She's due soon, so it's no problem to wait. You know, you're really throwing my grand seduction plan out of whack, Orochi-chan. I thought it was a plan to woo me, she said with a teasing grin. Naruto shared it before it dropped. Shit, he said. I isn't in the village. Damn it, I have to run them down, he said as he got out of bed. He channeled chakra to his right hand and placed it over his left pec. A seal activated and he was fully dressed and armed. Naruto quickly activated another seal on his left wrist as he approached Orochi, kissing her deeply and placing an object in her hand. Think about it and give me your answer later, he said as he dashed out the window, his sage mode buttressing his already impressive speed. Orochi opened her hand and found a black ring box. Once he was out of the village, Naruto performed an impressively long shunshin. And another, until he was standing in front of the 2 large chakra signatures he'd sensed. He knew the 2, they were well known as Kyumo's guardians, Karabi and Yujito-ni. Naruto was surprised. Not to see them, that was whatever, no, it was something else entirely. I'm not surprised your Raikage is a coward, but I am a little shocked he'd let the other Kage know it, Naruto said. Karabi snickered while Yujito sneered. He didn't much care how they felt about it. Naruto made a wood clone to deal with them. Wait, oh, Mr. 9-0. Didn't come for a test of might, let's avoid a pointless fight, fool ya fool. You really do rap when you talk? Honestly thought Jiraiya was being a little racist on that one. And sure, you 2 stand down, and we don't have to fight. Do you really think we'll let you run down Aisama so you can try to kill him? Yujito yelled at the Uzumaki. She promptly found herself unable to breathe, move, or even think as Naruto applied a great deal of pressure on her. I think that anything you do is a meaningless gesture, and I don't have time to teach babies how to breathe in my presence. You're outclassed, girl. Don't make a jerk of yourself. A deal I'm proposing based on the Brotherhood of the Chosen. I is a hothead, but I can't let him wind up dead. Take us in his place, and that'll change his pace. That's a stopgap measure. He'll simply bide his time until he can attack us to free the both of you, or he'll kidnap someone of high value to Konoha to force a trade. He won't be reasoned with, so he doesn't get reasoned with. He gets me, and that has one outcome. If I betrays I off myself without delay. Word is bond. Naruto looked at his fellow container while thinking. Kurama would have alerted him if he were lying, so he wasn't. True, he could run down the wood clone could stall these 2. However, this might be the only way to avoid war. It was a low percentage play, but maybe it was the kind of foolish bet this world needed. He needed to know why Karabi was going this far. Why put yourself in a jackpot for I? He caused this, and he should suffer the consequence. Family, 9-0. Shit, Naruto thought. If you'd pulled that shit an hour ago, we'd be brawling right now, Naruto said before his clone, and he blurred in front of Yujito and B respectively. Each placed an assorted sealing array on them. One was a Hiraishin Shiki and the other a bomb. He explained the latter to them and made sure they understood what would happen if they stepped out of line. Karabi understood his compliance was the only thing keeping his brother alive, as Gyuki relayed something about 9-0 felt very familiar and very dangerous to him. Let's go back to Suna. I hope Oba-chan doesn't kick my ass, Naruto said, and the trio of containers made their way back to the nearest shinobi village. Chapter 21 Deeper. I sat in a darkened office with only his rage and a half-empty bottle of whiskey for company. He was contemplating what could only be considered an insurrection he'd experienced. Sure, using medical ninjutsu to render him unconscious, and then Darui and he sneaking their Raikage out of a village. As if he were some disobedient child and not their supreme commander. If that weren't bad enough, they said both B and Yujito planned to surrender to stop any attempts on his life. His enemies had his brother. His enemies thought him a coward. And his most trusted men did this to him. It was a minor miracle he hadn't killed the both of them. He still might, the desire was there. He didn't care about their justifications, it was not their job to question or challenge him. He ordered, they obeyed. And to think, he considered Derry as his future replacement. How could he now? How could he continue to have either of them around him when he couldn't trust them? I took a hard swig from the glass bottle. The burn of the alcohol a mere afterthought. He'd have to stay his hand for now. His first attempt failed, spectacularly, and gave Konoha significant leverage. But it wouldn't matter, he would see Konoha fall regardless of what his idiot brother promised. He'd have to be smart. Wait until the perfect time. He'd also need an ally that excelled in deviousness. Mabui! I shouted with a drunken slur. Yes, Raikage-sama, she answered from the door. I need you to dictate a letter and send it high priority. His assistant came into his office, pen and pad in hand. I took a moment to gather his thoughts, trying his best to decide how to get the old fence-sitter to join his cause. Ah, Tsunade said as she slid down into her office chair, basking in the comfortable familiarity. It wasn't a long trip back, but it was a trying one as the female container, Yujito, kept shooting dirty looks at Naruto. To his credit, he ignored her, but the Godaima wanted to launch her back to Kumo via fist or foot. The only thing more annoying than Yujito's scowling gaze was B's incessant rapping. Everything came out as a rap. Everything. And once again, she had to give credit to her surrogate nephew, as he didn't seem to mind the large man's odd form of expression. Either of those could be dealt with, except Tsunade was also worried about her friend. Orochi had been subdued during their return. Not silent or withdrawn, but decidedly flat. It was clear something was bothering her, which is why it wasn't a surprise she requested Koharu join them. So, the three women sat as two, waited on Orochi to start. So, I may need your help planning a wedding, Orochi said. Guest lists, decorations, the whole deal. I never really thought about it, so I'm somewhat at a loss. You think Naruto-kun would have some opinions? I don't imagine wedding planning is high on the list of concerns for men of any age, but I really don't know. Once she finished, Orochimaru looked to see surprised faces aimed at her. What? Details, girl. We need details, Koharu exclaimed. Not much to say, really. After we got reacquainted by banging. Tsunade interrupted but was ignored. He told me he loved me, found out I was pregnant, and then gave me a ring as he went to chase down I. Recounted Orochi as she blandly went through the events. You make it sound like a mission report, Oroki-chan, Koharu remarked. What did he say when you said yes? I haven't said yes yet. Tsunade looked a little concerned as she asked. Are you having some doubts? You don't have to do it if you are. Kukuku, no, that isn't it. He was in mission mode, so it wasn't the time, and I was wondering how long I had to plan. I don't want to be huge in my wedding photos, she reasoned. The reactions of the other women in the room annoyed her. Stop grinning like idiots. Don't be like that, Oroki-chan, Tsunade said teasingly. Yes, if we're going to undertake this planning, then be nice. It's good to remember you can act girly on occasion. Just know, I am not sewing your kimono. Tsunade can do that. With what time and what skill? You're retired and are like her mother, so that responsibility would fall to you, Tsunade argued. And as her surrogate sister, I say you do it or I'll cane you. I'll just go to a seamstress, Orochi said. Yeah, no. We can't chance you being a bridezilla and ripping some poor soul in half, Tsunade responded. Give me some credit. I haven't done random acts of violence in months. I rest my case, Tsunade said, looking blankly at her best friend. I agree with Tsunade-chan. That's why she'll handle it. And while we're brainstorming, maybe you should tell your young man his proposal has been accepted? Orochi nodded and excused herself. Once Orochi was out of earshot, Koharu's smile faded into a hardened mask as she looked Tsunade in her eyes. You have a tough choice to make, Tsunade, Koharu informed her. Tsunade didn't ask what the choice was, she already knew. The Godaima turned away from her longtime mentor to look upon the village. Kakashi entered his apartment, relieved to be home. The trip had been trying in a way he hadn't experienced since he'd left ANBU. Having that many high-ranked ninja in one location was just begging for an incident, and it appeared I really wanted to stir up some trouble. The copy ninja couldn't believe I really ran in fear of them. There was more to the story, but the truth would hardly matter. The story to come out of the Chunin exams would be I fleeing from Konoha's contingent, and his brother begging for the Raikage's life. That would eventually lead to conflict. Hey, Kakashi, Obito said from the couch. Kakashi responded with an eye smile to his roommate. The initial meeting between them had been awkward. Some part of him hated Obito for taking Minato-sensei away, for the damage he'd done to Sasuke and Naruto, but most of him just felt sorry for his friend. To have watched Rin die, to be broken down by Madara Uchiha of all people, it was just too much. Kakashi understood why he gave up on the world. He also understood the desire for redemption even when knowing it was likely to never come. They had to form a new dynamic. They had grown and experienced too much to fall into old habits, but Kakashi felt lighter having his old friend around. Obito had a long road ahead of him, but Kakashi wouldn't abandon him. "How was Suna?" Obito asked, scooting over so Kakashi could join him on the couch. Kakashi then explained the events, including the foiled ambush and the arrival of Karabi and Yujito. Obito laughed. The bastard laughed. "There's no way you got paid enough for that." No, I did not," Kakashi answered, rubbing his one visible eye. "Things are going to get bad and I am not prepared to send my kids off to war, especially since I may not be there to watch over them," Kakashi confessed. Obito only nodded. With having one student as a jonin and the others as experienced chunin, chances are Kakashi would be pulled away to more pressing or specialized missions. "Don't be so preoccupied with discussion with the future you don't allow the present to have its say," Obito cautioned. Ma Obito. Sounding all wise and stuff, that's going to take some getting used to." "Ha ha ha," Obito laughed sarcastically. "It is generally the failures and the screw-ups who are the most wise, if they live long enough to mature. We know everything not to do." Kakashi forewent correcting his former teammate, knowing he often thought of himself as a failure even when others would vehemently disagree. "Then, can I borrow some of that hard-earned wisdom?" "I can try, but I make no promises," Obito responded. "What's up?" "What's up is I can't for the life of me make sense of why the Raikage seems to have a special and focused dislike of Naruto. If things go for the worst, I have no doubt he'll have assassination squads for much of the next generation, but there is something about Naruto that just really gets at the man and I can't imagine why." "Because he saw Sensei as a rival?" Obito questioned knowingly and Kakashi nodded. "Like with many a broken boy, you must look to the father, Kakashi. From the information Zetsu provided me, I plateaued after his father's death, meaning he likely never surpassed a man in strength dash. And given his belief that you rule and govern through strength, he sees himself as what, a pretender?" Kakashi asked, interrupting the Uchiha. "Maybe, or somehow not altogether worthy." "And how does that relate to Naruto?" "As strong as the was, he was not considered the strongest Kage of his era. He was not able to define the era either." "Who was?" "Sandaime-sama," Kakashi answered, his genius-level intellect directing a full picture. "I gets a dossier from Raza warning him of a burgeoning ninjutsu prodigy, having mastered all 5 elements, and creating original jutsu left and right, excellent weapon user with a great lineage. He thinks Naruto could have been his Hiruzen?" "Yup, and the Sandaime didn't have the strongest of the Bija sealed in him. If Naruto were just powerful or extremely fast like Sensei, I probably wouldn't regard him as he does. But you know how hard it is to create one original jutsu, no telling how many Naruto actually has. I sees the next god of shinobi before he reaches maturity, and sees a way to finally eclipse his father. This could only be more textbook if the guy secretly wanted to fuck his mother," Obito explained. When he was met with silence, he saw Kakashi looking at him blankly. "What? You were sounding really smart right until the end there, dummy." "Shut it, Kakateam. You know I'm right. I don't read any books about men wanting to screw their mommies, and I've read some wild porn in my day." "I didn't know you got it like that, Obito," Kakashi t-shed. Obito squawked in protest. "I'm talking psychology." Ma, I don't kink shame, Obito." "Stupid, one-eyed bastard. What do you want for lunch?" Obito asked, heading to the kitchen. "Oh, I'm not picky. Just don't put an eye out or people might wonder about your preferences." Obito said nothing, but Kakashi saw his neck muscles tense in annoyance. He didn't laugh, choosing to savor his silent victory instead. Yujito looked around the Hidden Leaf village and found nothing appealing about it in the slightest. The trees were too tall, leaves too green. The people lacked discipline, too relaxed for a military installation. A surprise attack would likely lead to a great deal of chaos. Even the air bothered her. It was too plentiful. Too easy. In the mountains of Kumo the air was thinner, you fought to breathe easily, but at this level everything was simply given to you. "Here we are," said the voice of Konoha's weapon. He led them to where they'd be staying, pointing to the single-level dwelling of wood and brick. "It has all the standard amenities, functioning utilities, and a fully stocked kitchen. Since you are a guest of the Uzumaki clan, it only made sense you reside on our land," he explained. Yujito detested how at ease he was around them, as if 2 of Kumo's best couldn't possibly pose a threat to him. He even removed the seals he'd placed on them in a show of supreme arrogance. That thought triggered the memory of her being breathlessly paralyzed in the deserts of Wind Country. She tightened her fist as she willed the memory away. As guests, you'll have access to all the public areas within Konoha, and if you want to train, we have private grounds, or I can arrange something if given enough notice. Of course, you are to stay away from any restricted areas and avoid general mischief. As an added gesture of goodwill, Tsunade-sama will be assigning a team of ANBU helpers for you. Helpers? Yujuto asked in disbelief. Yeah, if you need something and I'm unavailable, they will help. We're a friendly bunch in Konoha, will of fire and all that, Naruto answered with a smile. Yujuto found it offensive, like everything else connected to this village. They were hostages, pretending otherwise wouldn't fool Kurabi or her. 9-0 wants to befriend the killa. Include Miss 2 and it's a bigger thriller, fool, you fool, he said, slapping his bicep for emphasis. See, Kurabi gets it. Well, you two settle in. Naruto spoke and then shunshined away. The two guardians of Kumo entered their temporary dwelling, Yujuto thoroughly checking the place out while Kurabi simply hopped on the couch and laid down. However, before he could fully relax, he was engaged by Gyuki. What's up, Mr. 8? Feeling great? No, not at all. What do you know of that boy, Kurabi? Not much, but he respects the funky flow. What else I need to know? I spoke to the Kyuubi as we traveled back, Nibi and I both. The boy's chakra reminds me of someone that predates the shinobi era and was incredibly powerful. I also believe he has my brother's full cooperation. He's dangerous, Kurabi. Maybe so, but if we don't start, none won't be none. And what's the likelihood your brother will change his course? Big bro will see the light. To protect Kumo, he'll do what's right. War with the leaves ain't the vibe, so why via jutsu or weapon gripping? New tricks up new sleeves, new beliefs is what we need. Good luck convincing I of that, because if it comes to a fight, I'm not sure we can defeat Kyuubi's container. As B continued to speak to Gyuki, Naruto was conversing with his own Bijou. So, how did speaking with Nibi and Hachibi go? Naruto asked as he strode along his lands. I believe my message was conveyed, but both have grown arrogant over the years with their incessant backtalk. That isn't very nice, Kurama. They are your siblings, not your subordinates, and it wouldn't hurt to be a little softer to Bayo. Naruto lightly admonished. Kurama huffed before responding. Maybe, but they needed to understand the futility in attacking us, and if I have to be unpleasant now to avoid greater unpleasantness later, I believe that is a worthy sacrifice. Granted, Naruto said as he approached the Uzumaki manor, but I just don't want you to push them away if you don't have to. If Kurabi and Yujuto try anything, then that's just what it is. Did you three discuss anything else of note? Naruto asked and heard a pause. Kurama? There is something I need to tell you, something that insufferable squid noticed, though I had hoped he wouldn't. Okay, what's up? Whatever it is, we'll handle it. You know of my father Hagoromo, you know he created us. What you do not know is that he had 2 real sons, Kurama said, and was swiftly cut off. Kurama, you and the other 8 Bijou are his real children. That's not decided by biology but the bonds you forged, Naruto relayed, and while Kurama would never admit it, he was incredibly pleased with those words. Fine, biological sons, Indra and Azura. Indra was considered a genius, creating the hand signs you still use for your modern-day ninjutsu. So gifted, he started to rely solely on his own problem, not trusting or seeking the help of others. The younger brother, Azura, was a screw-up early in life, seemingly untalented in all Hagoromo tried to teach him. However, Azura was a natural in making friends and truly never met a stranger in his life. When it came time to choose a successor to Nishu, Hagoromo gave his 2 sons a final test. Azura passed, Indra didn't. Indra became angry and resentful, instigating a feud between brothers that would go on for generations, only stopping when the 2 prime abortion candidates of Madara and Hashirama created this village. Indra was the progenitor of the Uchiha, Azura of the Senju and Uzumaki. As Indra and Azura both died before resolving their feud, it is possible each would leave an imprint on one of their descendants. Kurama explained. Like reincarnation? Naruto asked. Transmigration, as the influence of either is more like an echo than each brother fully inhabiting another body, and the effect is most evident when each transmigrant interacts with the other. Do you recall when you learned to accept your darker self? The door you couldn't open? Yes, Naruto answered. The special process the Panthers subjected him to was extremely memorable, and just what he needed after the Land of Iron and his blow-up with Jiraiya. My father said the reason I couldn't open the door was because the time hadn't come, and it never may. I believe that door to contain Azura's echo, and your father would be correct that it would require more to untap it than a simple ritual or training, Kurama said. Okay, so how can Hachibi tell this? And why didn't you tell me? Naruto asked out of curiosity, not anger. All of the training you have undertaken, pushing your chakra in ways none before you have had the effect of increasing its potency and signature closer to Asura's own. Not only is it incredibly potent but in near perfect balance. That is more than a rarity in this age, Naruto. It doesn't happen. But doesn't all that disprove your own thesis? You said Asura was a screw-up, but I've been ahead of the curve since I started seriously training myself. Yes, I struggled, but I was attempting things that should have been beyond me at that age, Naruto argued. Ah, the wrinkle. You did, initially, struggle at the academy. The lectures were too long and slow, explanations simply not worded in the way you absorbed knowledge. If you had relied solely or primarily on the academy, I believe you'd only be unlocking much of your potential now, and even then, it may never reach the levels you have obtained. Hagoromo trained Asura. If not always personally, he instructed his attendants how he wished them to proceed. My father was a great man, but it was not a perfect one. Just like your academy instructors didn't understand what you needed, Hagoromo may not have understood how to truly train Asura. So, if I am this transmigrant, then everything I can do is because of that? All my work and boast that anyone could have broken these barriers was a lie? Naruto asked, sounding genuinely disappointed. No, you fool! Kurama yelled. Your mate proves that sub-elements can be learned, or have you forgotten that? Naruto chuckled. Yeah, I actually had to bail. Idiot. You had your advantages, of course. You were born with higher than average chakra reserves. My presence enhanced that so you could train longer. But having me meant your chakra was tilted toward yang, so all the bookwork you did was a real struggle until you started balancing your chakra. You earned your breakthroughs, Naruto. Minato, Asura, nor I can claim credit for that. Thanks, Kurama, Naruto said, and Kurama huffed in response. Naruto was learning he did that when he was moved or pleased and didn't want to admit it. So, if I am this transmigrant, that means what for Nibi and Hachibi? Indra and Asura made Madara and Hashirama look like children in comparison. For you to give Hachibi even a hint of a familiarity suggests you'd be powerful enough to defeat him and Nibi. That we were able to freely communicate means you have my full cooperation. Hachibi knows his bothersome container couldn't defeat us, and that worries him. Okay, that all makes sense, but you still haven't explained why you didn't tell me you suspected this, Naruto reminded the Bijou. It didn't seem relevant. If you were Asura's transmigrant, you demonstrated you couldn't access whatever lay within you, and I have no idea how to either. Also, you had no relationship with any of the existing Uchiha, so the rivalry was either settled with Madara and Hashirama, as who else could it have been, so there was nothing to look out for, or something veered you off the course and it is still moot. So, you're saying there's a reality where I'm super obsessed with Sasuke or some other Uchiha instead of being mind-blowingly awesome? That would have been a waste. If that's how you choose to interpret that, I won't argue, but I will never agree with it either, Kurama retorted. You know you love me, Kurama, Naruto teased, but continued before the fox could get indignant. I do understand why you never told me. While interesting, it isn't the most actionable of intel. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, the Crimson Maelstrom, and I chart my own path. Sure you do, Tomato Head, Kurama teased back, knowing it'd make his idiot container irate. Why you? Take that back or I'll come into the seal and beat your whole ass, Databeo. I'd like to see you try, Pipsqueak. I'll use you as a chew toy, Kurama barked. Kukuku, having a private conversation, Naruto-kun? Orochi said from behind. Naruto turned toward with a beaming smile. He'd been so wrapped up with talking to Kurama he'd stopped at the door and stopped fully paying attention to his surroundings. Something like that, he answered before thinking. We'll finish this little exchange later, Kurama. I look forward to it, whelp. Kurama replied before going silent. The discussion with his lifelong companion ended. Naruto scooped Orochi in his arms and gave her a kiss. Hey, he greeted as he let go of her and opened the door. I wasn't expecting to see you so soon. Well, we need to talk, do we not? Orochi asked rhetorically. Naruto nodded and led her to the front room. The two snuggled up on the couch, a habit of theirs. Naruto sat in silence as he watched Orochi had a pen and pad, having seemingly materialized from nowhere. Okay, a few things. 1. I'll be showing soon enough, and if anyone tries to touch my belly I'll kill them, she explained. Could I negotiate you down to a maiming? Maybe a severe beating? I'll kill them, Naruto-kun, so you'll have to see to their protection if you care to. Secondly, all of my lab equipment is at my manor, but I'd presumably be spending a majority of my downtime here. I can run some tunnels to your labs or dedicate some clones to building you some labs here, Naruto said. An addendum, our housing situation. We have two. I doubt many people want to buy mine, and I'm not keen on selling it. Well, and this is wholly dependent on you, but there can traditionally only be one heir. Should we have more than one child, the second-born might like to have their own space to inherit. Like, hey, not the heir, but here's a big-ass house. Kukuku, trying to leave me barefoot and in the kitchen, Naruto-kun? I never knew that was your type. I think you'd agree I do some of my better work in the kitchen, Orochi-chan. Naruto responded. Indeed, but regardless, I won't become an Uzumaki baby mill. Speaking of, how many kids do you want? Orochi asked and felt Naruto shrugged. Honestly, I don't have a number in mind as I didn't think we could have one. So, I don't know. That surprised the snake Sannin. But you've wanted a family, why didn't you think I'd figure out a solution? Because not having children wasn't a problem, and knowing your age I'd accepted being with you presented some realities. It just wasn't some grand sacrifice. I could take on students, adopt or whatever else. And while I am so excited we are having a child together, it was never a deal breaker. I want you, Orochi-chan. We could have figured everything else out when the time came. Naruto was awarded a quick kiss on the cheek for his answer, it happening so fast and going unacknowledged that he could have been forgiven for doubting it happened. I would like some yuzu trees. I like the fruit and the smell they give off. My feet get cold at night, I will be putting them on or under you for additional warmth and expect no complaints. Enko and I have tea twice a week, and once you let her in your home she'll be impossible to get rid of. Treat her kindly. Those are doable. Anything else? Naruto asked. I'm sure there will be, but we'll have a lifetime to figure them out. Orochi said as she retrieved the ring box from inside of kimono, opened it, and slipped the ring on. I look forward to it, Naruto said, gently pulling his wife to be closer. The two shared a quiet moment, each looking forward to their future together. The moment ended when Orochi felt a rumble in Naruto's chest and heard a chuckle. She turned to her fiancé and saw him smiling brightly. Since you said yes, I guess it is time to pay your bride price, Naruto observed. Not even the daimyo still do that, Naruto-kun. Besides, I don't think you have enough to afford me. Well, let's call it an engagement present then, he said as he retrieved a scroll from his kunai holster. Naruto unfurled the scroll and unsealed a single item. He placed it in Orochi's hand and laughed at her confusion. A water balloon? She asked in disbelief. This is only step 1, Orochi-chan. This is a gift, but it's one you have to earn. However, once you do you'll have this, Naruto said as he formed a Rasengan in his hand. As soon as Naruto ended the jutsu he was mounted, Orochi's tongue invading his mouth and her hands in his sanguine locks. She felt herself being pulled closer as Naruto wrapped his arms around her slender frame. You get a room, said a deep voice from an entryway. The newly engaged couple broke apart, though Orochi never left Naruto's lap as she glared at her fellow Sannin. Technically, Jiraiya, every damn room in this house is my room, Naruto said. Yeah, whatever. Look, I didn't scar my psyche with the sight of you with her, but your Nara teammate is coming to the door dash. A jittery and fast knock was heard just as Jiraiya announced Shikamaru's arrival. Okay, that's weird. I'm probably going to have to go, Naruto said while gazing up at his wife-to-be. Can we continue this later? She nodded as she slid off his lap and another vigorous knock was heard. Jiraiya, can you walk her through the first step of learning the Rasengan, please? Naruto requested, and to Orochi's surprise Jiraiya didn't refuse. You move faster than even your father, and he wanted to marry Kushina after their first date, Jiraiya replied wistfully. Naruto shot him a smile before saying, Counterclockwise, Jiraiya, and then departed. Well, are we doing this now? Jiraiya asked with zero enthusiasm. What did Naruto-kun mean by counterclockwise? It's the orientation of your chakra. When you start forming the Rasengan it should go counterclockwise, Jiraiya explained. How could he know that? Easiest way to check is to see the direction the hair grows at the crown of your head. Naruto, see the top of your head a lot, Orochi? Jiraiya asked suggestively. Infinitely more than you've ever seen Tsunade's, Orochi shot back. Knowing he'd lost this one. Troublesome, Shikamaru said when his third attempt at knocking was interrupted by Naruto storming out of the door. What's up? Naruto asked. Kurenai-sensei is in the hospital, it's time, Shikamaru explained. He then felt Naruto grab onto his shoulder and instantly found himself in front of the hospital. That was weird, the Nara said. Naruto rolled his eyes at his friend as the two raced to the maternity ward. Upon arrival Naruto noticed he was the last one there and was thankful he'd managed to make it back today. Team Asuma, Shino, Hiruzen and Enko had taken seats in the waiting room and Naruto grabbed an empty one by the aburame. Naruto, Shino greeted. Shino, he greeted back. After that, Naruto couldn't really recall too much about any other conversations as they all waited for news. He wondered how Asuma was managing and if he'd be a good, supportive partner for Orochi-chan. As he sat in the waiting room, much of pending changes to his life were starting to feel more real. He was going to be a husband and a father soon. He wasn't scared, which surprised him. Not that he felt ready, but he had so many people to lean on for support that he was confident he could manage. A little over an hour later, Asuma returned to the waiting room to announce the arrival of Mirai Sarutobi. It was another 20 minutes before the young men of Team Kurenai were allowed to see their sensei and her newborn. As they were ushered into the room, setting eyes on a clearly tired and elated Kurenai holding onto her little girl, it was Shino that spoke what they all noticed. "She bears a striking resemblance to you, sensei." "I suppose so, but I see a lot of Asuma in her too," Kurenai replied softly. "I'm glad all three of you could be here for this new addition to our family. When I see the three of you, there are so many characteristics of yourselves I hope you can impart on Mirai-chan. Asuma and I debated back and forth, but I couldn't pick between you three, so I hope you'd be fine splitting duties as Mirai's godfathers." "Of course, sensei," Naruto answered with a beaming smile. "It would only be right," Shino said. "It wouldn't be troublesome," Shikamaru agreed. "Excellent. I know with the three of you helping to watch over her, she'll be a very happy and well-protected little girl. Yeah, we'll have her whipping S-rank Jinjutsu before she leaves the academy. Uzumaki Naruto, you will not teach Mirai-chan any S-rank techniques before she becomes a Chunin, do you understand me? What if it's a light S-rank? Like barely S-rank? Do you understand me?" "Yes, sensei," he replied as his two teammates laughed at him. "Don't you two laugh, I expect restraint from each of you as well. No advanced tracking and assassination techniques, Shino. But they will be incredibly useful, why?" "Don't care, wait until she's out of the academy." "And Shikamaru? What could I possibly do?" "Oh, I see how you manipulated Choji and Ino to get them into shape. No neuro-linguistic programming until I say otherwise." "What a drag," Shikamaru said, but relented under the stern glare of his sensei. "Fine, I won't, but you have to admit of the three of us, Naruto was the one to most likely teach her something inappropriate." "Affirmative," Shino agreed. "Well, of course," Kurenai added, causing a depression cloud to form over Naruto's head. "I'm not that bad," he whined, which caused another round of laughter. Naruto soon joined in, soaking up this perfect moment, hoping it'd last. Chapter 22, Extreme Measures. Setsu waited for his potential new tool. If it were hot or cold, the being couldn't tell, didn't care. He was the divine will of Kaguya, her true child, and his only goal was to facilitate her return. He thought turning the two sons of Hagoromo against each other would be something she'd approve of. He thought tempting Indra to give into his darkness would be how the boy developed his own Rinnegan. He'd been wrong. And in his error, in his short-sightedness, he delayed the return of his mother. Madara showed him, the Rinnegan needed both halves of the sage's lineage and likely the strongest or purest expressions available. The Senju were all but dead, same for the Uchiha. Nagato was a powerful Uzumaki, the only reason he managed to wield those eyes, but said eyes were sealed away. Zetsu was in real danger of failing his mother. He suspected he needed not only Sasuke but the container of the Kyuubi and someone with the medical knowledge to transplant the DNA of the one into the other. He'd ordered Shino to kill the two boys, never expecting the man to succeed. His hope had been to weaken them so he could abduct them, but Shino had proven wholly useless. So, now he planned to tempt one more frail being to do his bidding. It was so easy. These humans could play at being high-minded, but in the end, it was their desires that ruled them. If he knew what they wanted, getting them to act as he wished was child's play. An entire culture built on deception and cunning, and yet they could be swayed by such meager ends. Zetsu didn't react when he heard the grass rustle, he'd sensed the approaching shinobi. The moonlight formed a glint on his eyeglasses as he removed the hood from his cloak. "Zetsu, I presume?" the smug boy asked. "Kabuto Yakushi," Zetsu acknowledged. Kaguya's will and Orochimaru's former top spy stared at each other for several moments, either wanting to cede the smallest advantage to the other. Kabuto was the one to break the silence. "You were very discreet in your request I meet you, but I failed to see why you'd bother. I was ordered to do one thing and your head gets me back to where I want to be." "Does it?" Zetsu asked. "Even if you and your group could defeat me, I think you'd find some surprising changes once you return to Konoha. And as long as Uzumaki Naruto exists, you'll never have your Orochimaru back. She'll always be his." Zetsu felt the anger well up in the boy, being reminded of the person he surely hated most in the world. "And what could you possibly do about that? Or should I be asking what I'd need to do to receive your aid? What I want is very simple. I need a living tissue sample from Uzumaki Naruto implanted into Uchiha Sasuke and time to oversee the effects of said procedure. To accomplish that and remove the Uzumaki permanently, I would give you the means. The boy may be powerful for this age, but he is nothing compared to the legends of the past. Do you know the Edo Tensei Kabuto? Yes. Orochimaru allowed me to learn a version of it. Kabuto did not take comfort in Zetsu's smile as the man formed the ram's sign and tree roots emerged from the ground, carrying with them a casket. Zetsu calmly walked over to the casket and opened it. Kabuto looked unimpressed at the fossil. And who might this be? The real Uchiha Madara, Zetsu informed the spy. Kabuto looked at Zetsu in disbelief. But it is, Zetsu reassured the medic. Agree to work with me and I will give you Madara himself, and with him, under your control, you will not fail to kill the Uzumaki. What do you say? Zetsu asked but assumed the answer was obvious. All this for me just so you can get Uchiha Sasuke-kun? Seems pretty suspicious, Zetsu-san. There's also the problem of my not having a reason to return to Konoha nor having any information on Sasuke's mission assignments. I'm sorry, Kabuto, I assumed you were clever. If entering into your own village and abducting one Jounin is too difficult for you, then I've come to the wrong person, Zetsu responded, adding some menace to his voice. Now, threats are unneeded. I'd be happy to help and rid myself of that red-haired blight, Kabuto said, adjusting his glasses. Zetsu looked upon the boy smugly as he'd never get to enjoy whatever small victory he claimed over the Uzumaki. As soon as the procedure was complete, he'd eliminate Kabuto. Good. Since your squad is so diligently tracking me, I will lead you back to Konoha. I expect you to take care of the rest. Zetsu and Madara's corpse sank into the ground without further word. Kabuto wasn't surprised the former Akatsuki didn't hand over Madara just yet. The medic didn't mind, he was patient. He'd get his hands on the legendary Uchiha, and then use the man to remove Zetsu and Naruto. He knew Orochimaru would be furious, at first, but he'd make her see reason, make her see how far she'd strayed from her true self, and then things would return to normal. It was just a matter of time. Understand? I stated. I don't want to send you. I don't trust you, not really. Konoha has my brother because of you, but Inoki can sense no dissension within our ranks, and with Dodai gone, you are all I have. I understand, Darui replied, posture rigid and eyes focused. Any allowance of informality was gone, and the strictest of etiquette was permitted. It was early yet, not even errant rays of sunlight could be seen. Darui was alert and, more importantly, he welcomed the opportunity to leave. Sure, and he had explained themselves as well as they could. Ice ambush failed and they needed to fall back. Even with Karabi and Yujito there, those two couldn't be expected to fight 2/3 of the Sannin, Hatake Kakashi, Uzumaki Naruto, and potentially, Gaara of the desert in the desert. Darui even made the point that if Karabi thought the AB tandem could have won, he wouldn't have sacrificed himself. I would hear nothing of it. The Raikage swore Karabi was just attempting to avoid a fight, as was his way. That while formidable, the Konoha contingent would not have been enough, nor would the Boikage that ruled over Suna. He swelled with pride and reeked of liquor when he stated that whatever advantage they had, none could overcome his lightning armor. Darui remarked that Iai-sama never believed that lone technique made him invincible. I lost it and punched through a wall, narrowly missing Darui's head. The two Kumo elites looked at each other, I in rage and Darui nearing anger himself. He was loyal, but he was no coward and would not accept any and all treatment from I. He lived for Kumo, he'd die for Kumo, but before anything, he was a man. Not some boy, not a sycophant, but man, and he wouldn't carry it any other way. Mabui intervened before the situation could become unsalvageable, and Darui hadn't spoken to the Raikage again until this briefing. You are expected to arrive within 5 days and are to stay for no longer than a week. I expect you to be able to tell whether Inoki is serious or not. Promise him nothing and report everything to me upon your return. Do not fail me. Dismissed, I bellowed. Darui departed silently. Clanging and furious movement could be heard as a trio of blurs engaged in a violent exchange of weapons. After the last attack, two broke away from one, looking on at their mutual opponent. Shikamaru held his tanto in a reverse grip, knees slightly bent, prepared to move at the smallest provocation. Shino, dual Seius at the ready, was a mere foot apart, primed for the same. Naruto looked at his two teammates with a smile as he spun his pair of metal nunchaku. They were starting to breathe a little heavy, but it had been a good showing and he wouldn't let up. He appeared in front of Shino with an impressive display of pure speed and began attacking. Clang, clang, swoosh, clang. The sounds went as the Aburame air blocked, deflected, and dodged. Shikamaru came into Naruto's blind side, ruthlessly slashing at his neck, but his progress was ended by Naruto's well-timed back kick. Planting the kicking foot, Naruto rotated as to avoid Shino's dual thrust and retaliated with more swings, none hitting the mark. Having both assailants in his view, Naruto brought an end of each nunchaku together, and with a concentration of his chakra transformed them into a short spear. Shino? Shikamaru spoke. Yes, Shikamaru? Does it offend you any that we're being pushed this hard by a shadow clone and Naruto is just using said clone to get some training with his Kotan? Yes, does. Why? Because the shadow clone, by its very nature, is a fraction of its creator's overall ability and power. Also, why should he get to spend our team training time with his girlfriend Fiancé while we're over here with this troublesome clone? Long distance getting to you, Shikamaru? Shino asked, and Shikamaru could hear the teasing in his voice even if it didn't change in the slightest. Cold showers are a drag, Shikamaru responded as he hadn't seen Temari in weeks. I wouldn't know, Shino bragged. I hate you both. Oh, less talking, more fighting, the real Naruto said as he sat under a shady tree, Orochimaru between his legs as she attempted to pop the water balloon. Shika and Shino both responded with a single finger hand gesture, and Naruto delighted in his clone continuing his assault. He returned his attention to his betrothed as she focused intensely on the water balloon in her right hand. Oroki-chan, I'm getting concerned you've slipped past concentration and ran straight into existential contemplation on the nature of that water balloon, he said in jest. She released a small laugh in return. Maybe so, this jutsu is vexing. It should be simple, and for some reason even knowing what I should do it just isn't coming to me. You're likely outsmarting yourself, Naruto suggested as he thought back to her progress or lack thereof. Since you have some notion of what should be done, you're trying to do it all at once. Basically, your genius brain is making this harder for you. Be more like Jiraiya, Naruto observed and then advised. Oh my, Naruto-kun, right in front of your teammates? Kinky boy. She purred and felt something move against her back. That is not what I meant, Tebeo, Naruto defended. He briefly looked back to his friends and clone, seeing his Bunshin had gone from the short spear to a Kusarigama as it fought only Shino, Shika having tapped out. Isn't it? She asked. Is my wearing this ring not enough? Must you claim me in front of an audience, you brute? She said as she gently grinded against him. I give you win, Naruto conceded, not wanting her to escalate things. Kukuku, of course I do, the future Uzumaki said as she watched the exchange between Team Kurenai. It made her curious. When did you learn those weapon forms, Naruto-kun? Jiraiya is serviceable with them, but that's about it. The scroll Hashirama-sama left me had a lot of forms and styles for various weapons. Once I learned the steel release Jiraiya, and I agreed it made sense to increase my proficiency in more than just sword types. The two continued to chat away until Tayuya approached them at a clipped pace, gaining the notice of Shika and Shino as well. Orochimaru-sama, you're needed at the Hokage Tower, Tayuya announced but said no more. Orochimaru kissed Naruto's cheek and departed, Tayuya close behind. When the pair were far enough away, Orochimaru questioned her subordinate. What else did you have to tell me, Tayuya-chan? Kimimaro and company have returned, all but Kabuto are at your manor. Kabuto was taken to the Hokage by a squad of ANBU, the Uzumaki Genjutsu mistress relayed. You join the boys, I'll go have a word with Kabuto-kun, Orochi said, voice monotone. Hi. Tayuya obeyed and shunshined to her destination. Neither she nor Orochi noticed a single Kakechi depart from Tayuya's hair. Shino's trusted ally soon returned to his host's body, causing Shino to call a stop to the spar. Normally the return of an ally would be welcome but offer little in the way of intelligence. But Team Kurenai didn't deal in normal. Maybe may have thought Kurenai was a poor match for her students, but they'd be completely wrong. Outside of each boy learning to be adept trackers, intelligence gatherers and some of the best genjutsu users in the village, they all took to learning Purine release and infusing it into their arsenal. For Shikamaru, it made his shadow-based jutsu stronger than any of his clan save, possibly, his father, and he'd soon surpass the Jounin commander. He also had more variations than anyone, his shadows seemingly coming to life to haunt his enemies. Naruto, already having overachieved at being able to wield genjutsu, wanted to manage to infuse it into his elemental ninjutsu. He'd succeeded at creating a few techniques that could attack while also ensnaring the enemy. He also uses it to mask his summoning jutsu, his enemies never truly knowing how many panthers he calls forth at any one time. Like the rest of his team, Shino trained and excelled in genjutsu. Like Shikamaru, he managed to infuse the Yin release into his family's signature abilities, but not to attack but as a method of intelligence gathering. Limited in what they could record, he had a section of specialized Kikaichu that could replay overheard conversations. His facility with them only grew during his time as a hunter Nin, missing ninja failing to ambush or evade the Aburame air. And now one of those special, little bugs was revealing something of great importance. Naruto had grown and matured during his time away. He'd really taken much of Jiraiya's philosophies to heart, even if he didn't wholly agree. He believed in peace, but a peace that protected the weak from the strong. He believed that revenge was an oft futile act that didn't balance the scales nor sated the emotional needs of the person seeking it. He was not as angry, not as quick to violence now as he was then, partially because his level of skill and power demanded control and discernment. Kabuto is back, Shino informed Shika and Naruto. With all his growth, he was not a pacifist nor a saint. Anyone that proved to be a threat could be removed, and Kabuto had tried to kill him and his team. By itself, that earned Kabuto a slot on Naruto's kill list. But now that he knows Orochi is pregnant, the medic became a problem in need of a solution. He dies today, Naruto said. He's in the Hokage's custody, Shino pointed out. Today, Naruto reiterated. He saw the looks his friends shot him. Looks that begged for an explanation. Naruto sighed before answering. Orochi's pregnant, he said. He smirked a little as both concealed their surprise well, likely focusing on the issue at hand. Naruto ran his fingers through his hair. Chakra is a funny thing. Your initial capacities are like any other genetic predisposition, given to you by your parents. But chakra can change, expand, strengthen over time, so in that way he can act as something akin to an environmental factor. Your chakra can affect how your genes express themselves. It is an epigenetic factor. Naruto explained and saw that each was still with him. He'd honestly hadn't known this until Tsunade started training him on medical ninjutsu, as she refused to do things halfway. My child will be the child of a Sannin and a lifelong Jinchuriki Uzumaki who has spent a solid decade increasing the potency and amount of his chakra. Massive reserves, Shikamaru said. Yes, Kyuubi says I'm nearing tailed best level reserves on my own now that I no longer have to hold his chakra back. Well, when baby forms it takes more than just nutrients from mom. Even as a Sannin, it is likely Orochimaru's own chakra system will be strained and impacted by the unique circumstances of his or her conception, Shino concluded. Troublesome. At some point, she's going to be weakened. Chakra control shot, maybe not consistently, but that almost makes it worse. Reserves also diminish to go the most troublesome fetus in history. Kabuto would probably make another attempt on your life first, but if he believes he can't get to you, he'll target the baby, Shikamaru concluded. Kabuto dies today, Naruto reiterated. Agreed/affirmative, his teammates said without hesitation. Shikamaru then added. Snatching him from the Hokage and therefore A and B won't be easy. We have to at least try to get away with it. We'd also have to talk to Kurenai-sensei. Why? Even if purely ceremonial, she is still our squad leader and deserves to know, be allowed to weigh in. I agree. Besides, I may have a plan, but I'd need Kurenai-sensei's help. What plan? Shikamaru asked. Singing in the rain, Naruto said. Ambitious, was the Nara's reply. Village-wide? Shino asked. And followed up. Can you handle that? For my future wife and child? Yes. Besides, you two would have the hard part. We'd only have one go at this, and if we fail we are so screwed, Shikamaru expressed. Guys, if this is too much I will sincerely understand. Just tell me now and I'll handle it. Honest. No, we will undertake this as a team, but we should be aware of the consequences. Some will be present even should we succeeded, Shino explained. We'll need 2 messenger summons. I have everything else on me, said Shikamaru. Same, Shino added. Naruto nodded and then summoned 2 panther cubs. His teammates informed the little ones of their tasks, and they took off. The 3 members of Team Kurenai then made their way to Kurenai's. Kabuto sat in the armless chair, Hokage in front of him, Toad Sage behind, and a team of hidden A and B ready to strike at a moment's notice. Objectively, his situation was precarious, but as a former spy, he'd gotten used to it, learned to manage the anxiety before it became full-blown panic. They had yet to ask him a question, which meant they were awaiting the arrival of someone else. When the door opened behind him, before he even heard her trademark laugh, he just knew who it was. Kukuku, I certainly was not expecting to see you today, Kabuto-kun, she said as she walked past her former second-in-command. Kabuto surveyed her in but a glimpse. It was short, but he'd seen all he needed to. The ostentatious ring glinting in the light, minor, yet significant, body changes that could only mean one thing. She was engaged, possibly married, and pregnant for that lowly, childish Uzumaki. He fought to remain still, forced his body not to adjust his glasses in a show of his seething rage. She was capable of so much, meant for more, and she settled for that worm? A lower life form, a hammer only capable of bludgeoning things. His mistress found that Uzumaki, back always straight, an arrogant smile that suggested he was in on some secret shared by the universe. A boy. A boy. She changed for a boy like some fangirl. Most powerful and feared woman in the shinobi nations, and she'd rather play house with a boy. It was almost too much, discipline and fear of death be damned. She needed to be called into account for how far she'd fallen. What was it about the Uzumaki that made him so impressive to her? While he may have had some talent, he was just as babed and protected as every other leaf brat blessed to walk in the light. Because he was a good fighter? So were a lot of people. That he had some jutsu? So what? How many jutsu from the same elemental do you need? What did Naruto Uzumaki have that he, Kabuto, did not? What was so special about this boy, a boy, that it made the person he respected most in the world forget herself and forget him? What? Kabuto. Tsunade spoke, getting the medic's attention. Yes, Tsunade-sama? He replied, trying to calm himself as he felt that old blood stirring. He needed to get out of here and complete his deal with Zetsu. Why are you here? Is Zetsu dead? No, he said. Kukuku, and yet you dare return? How brave of you! Orochi quipped. Zetsu had proven most elusive, this is true, but the reason I returned is he made me an offer. He wants me to abduct Uchiha Sasuke. In return, he offered to kill Naruto, believing that is something I want, Kabuto said, knowing he had to give most of the truth for any of this to work. If Zetsu were capable of killing Naruto, why wouldn't he abduct Sasuke by himself? Tsunade asked, and Kabuto cursed her internally. Dealing with lesser minds had hampered his game. I don't know, Hokage-sama. He wasn't long on details, he seemed ready to attack me should I have given him reason to doubt me. Tsunade turned her chair to stare out the window. Like her two teammates, she was digesting what Kabuto had reported. She mulled the swift change in weather as storm clouds appeared to gather in the once cloudless sky. The fifth Hokage suspected Kabuto was holding something back, something important. The question was, could they use him, uncover his plot and neutralize him before he had a chance to strike or go to ground? Should she just execute him now? One swift punch would do it. As the raindrops started to fall and the sounds and smells of the storm filled her office, Tsunade cursed Hiruzen for leaving her with this mess. He should have killed the boy and been done with it. Instead, he all but pardoned the traitor and used him as a pawn, and since that was one of his last official acts, Tsunade couldn't legally kill him for something her predecessor had adjudicated. Just another corner of Sensei's cluster of pronounced fuckery left on her desk like an errant shit she was expected to clean up. The Godaime closed her eyes, the steady pattern of the rain helping her think. She wanted to get rid of the last of the Akatsuki, even Obito saying Zetsu was a danger with his intelligence-gathering abilities. The Uchiha had given as much information as he could on the thing as it was not a living person. When Obito said it was Madara's will manifested, Naruto immediately called bullshit. Tsunade smiled as she recalled her surrogate nephew going into lecture mode about eating tethers and how if Zetsu were Madara's will, Madara would have to be alive or Zetsu would have ceased to exist. Obito reassured them Madara was definitely dead, so that meant Zetsu had been convincing and conniving enough to even trick that man. Sneaking up on him was almost impossible. Kabuto confirmed what Obito reported about the plant thing's sensory abilities. Obito didn't know much about his combat prowess but suspected he could hold his own against most ninja. Zetsu presented the worst kind of threat, a known unknown. It made plotting and planning to remove the thing mind-numbingly difficult. This meant Kabuto's triple agent routine might be their best bet. She'd have to get Sasuke in on the plan, maybe have Naruto give him a Hiraishin kunai so the two boys could just kill or seal the thing. Tsunade turned around, decision having been made. She then proceeded to drill down a plan to trap the last Akatsuki member. Again and again and again. The details never changed, but no one in the room seemed to notice, except Jiraiya. The Toad Sage had been having this inkling, this instinct that something wasn't right. Or better stated, off balance. He couldn't put his finger on it, so he walked to and sat in the window. For some reason, the storm reverberated with him, but he felt equally pulled to and away from it, feeling the need to go over Tsunade's plan again. Forcing himself to focus on the rainfall, he finally pinpointed the abnormality. The rain was brimming with Senjutsu chakra, which meant it wasn't natural. Jiraiya hastily threw up a barrier meant to shield all senses within it. Kai! Jiraiya called out as he disrupted his chakra and immediately noticed Tsunade and Orochimaru were looking at and interacting with an empty chair. Kabuto was gone. He broke each one out of the Genjutsu, and her Anbu guard. What the hell, Jiraiya? Tsunade yelled. She was the world's best medic, as in touch with her chakra flow as anyone, so putting her under a Genjutsu was no small feat. Kabuto is gone, don't know for how long, and the only thing preventing us from falling into the same Genjutsu is this barrier, Jiraiya explained. The storm? Orochi concluded, briefly recalling it starting but paying it no more attention. However now, Thanks to the barrier, she couldn't sense any part of it. Yes. Did Naruto know Kabuto was back? This is his technique, he said. I didn't tell him, but that is clearly irrelevant, and we're wasting time. He didn't take Kabuto to give him a lecture, Orochi responded. I need to go, Jiraiya said as he performed the summoning jutsu, the results surprising his teammates. Ma, Pa, I'm sorry to be short, but I need to enter Sage mode and stop Naruto. Both toads hop on his shoulders, but it didn't stop Shima from asking. What is Naruto-chan going to do, Jiraiya boy? Remove a threat to his family. Unfortunately, that threat is a village asset. Pa nodded sagely. Naruto-chan prefers decisive action. He's like Minato-chan in that way. Yeah, he's a chip off the old block, which is why we can't delay. The two sages focused and balanced the natural energy for Jiraiya. Now looking very toad-like, he turned to Tsunade and said, I can control this barrier remotely, so when it drops send every A and B you can. Jiraiya hopped out the window, his heightened senses alerting him to two Narutos, one cloaked under a genjutsu by Kurenai and the other with his teammates on the Nara lands. He'd go there and draw the real one, who he assumed to be with Kurenai, to him. As he dashed toward his destination, he ignored that he hadn't sensed Kabuto. Earlier, before Jiraiya was making a mad dash toward the members of Team Kurenai, the young men were in their sensei's house, Shino holding Mirai and Shikamaru smirking as Naruto got several bonks on the head. After 3, Kurenai hugged her problem child. Why the reaction? Like Shino and Shikamaru, Naruto informed Kurenai Orki and he were engaged but didn't mention she was pregnant. That, however, was not the cause of her violent reaction but his reasoning of withholding the news to not overshadow Mirai's arrival. Kurenai thought it was stupid as they could all use more joy. Though she did instill a new team rule of no children until they were S-class ninja or 20 years old. When Naruto suggested he could get them to S-class in 6 months of dedicated training, both intended victims were vehement in their refusal. Seeing Naruto look so smug, she bonked him again and said that was for putting a shadow on her. She'd long suspected it, but only recently had she caught Majila. The unofficial 5th member of the team reassured Kurenai she was there to observe but not report. Kurenai then took the time to introduce the much larger panther to her daughter. Now, the team was out back as they'd explained the dilemma and plan to Kurenai. She wasn't enthusiastic but agreed to aid them. She watched Naruto create a shadow clone and then sit down with his legs crossed. She cloaked the entire team, hiding their presence just before Naruto became engulfed in golden Bijou chakra. A tail went to Kurenai, Shino, and Shikamaru, giving them the version 1 Bijou cloak. It was the only way to shield them from his jutsu while they were on the move. With the aid of Kurama, Naruto was already pulling in and balancing the natural energy with his chakra. Soon the horizontal bar pupil overlaid the vertical slits. Okay, walk us through this jutsu one more time, Naruto, Kurenai requested. It starts with the typhoon release. With sage-infused Bijou chakra I can generate a village-wide storm. Nagato had something similar in Ame going constantly, and used it as a sensory jutsu. The genjutsu I'll overlay happens in conjunction, meaning it is laced in the very clouds and permeates every sensation the storm produces: sight, sound, smell, touch, and taste. Pure hypnosis, Kurenai said, sincerely impressed. Yes, but the downsides are several. Even for me, this is chakra-intensive. I can't move while using it, and it generates a good deal of mental strain because of the number of people I'm affecting. It also takes over 100 hand signs, Naruto explained. It's good you know its limitations. Once the rain really starts coming down, you two get a move on. Kyuubi's chakra protects you, but you'll still be coated in rain, meaning anyone who hadn't been affected will be should they see you. Seeing his teammates nod, Naruto closes his eyes to focus. He began the long chain of hand signs, performing each one with the skill befitting a ninjutsu specialist. The Uzumaki increased his speed as he went through, hands moving faster near the end compared to the beginning. The effects could be seen instantaneously, as the clouds started to form before he was even half done. 3/4 finished and the first drops started to fall, the amount and rate of rainfall increasing as Naruto neared completion. On the last sign, Naruto thought Sage Art, Kyoka Suigetsu, and Konoha was blanketed in a sudden storm, but almost none sensed anything was askew. Shino and Shika shunted away, arriving just a short distance from the Hokage tower. The Nara could tell no one saw them. It was impressive, but he had no time to marvel. Running to the tower, they post outside the window and overhear the conversation. Patiently, they waited, and when they heard the loop restart, the heirs slipped into the office and grabbed Kabuto, Shino knocking him unconscious. It was surreal to see the 3 Sannin continue to speak to someone that wasn't conscious nor would be there soon. Draped over his shoulder, Shino and Shikamaru made their way to the Nara forests, where Naruto's shadow clone was awaiting them. Once they made it to the final destination, Naruto erected a sensory barrier, and then restrained Kabuto with steel chains. Once set, he broke Kabuto free of the illusion, and the other two lost their bijou cloak. The medic blinked, clearly confused as to where he was and how he got there, but once he laid eyes on Naruto he tried to break free, desire to kill him overriding any other concern. A startlingly strong punch to the jaw settled Kabuto down, nearly concussing him. "We don't have a lot of time, so this isn't going to be a whole thing. You're about to die, make whatever peace you can. Or don't, I don't care. Shika, you're up," Naruto said. Shikamaru approached the medic with some powder in a vial. He poured into his hands. Once Shikamaru was right in front of the bound Kabuto, he blew the substance in Kabuto's face, forcing the spy of Oto to ingest it. At first, Kabuto felt nothing, but soon he noticed an elevated heart rate and the sensation that time had slowed considerably. He watched the Abirame approach him, and it felt like it took hours when logically he knew that to be impossible. Said Shinobi placed one finger near Kabuto's hairline. Kabuto couldn't see but felt an insect climb onto him. Then he felt pain. "That type of beetle burrows. Right now, it's doing that to your skull and will continue until it eats through your brain." The torture he was experiencing made writhe against his bindings, but he could only haplessly flail. It was as if he was feeling each bite in its greatest detail, over and over again. So blinded by pain, Kabuto didn't realize Naruto had returned until the Uzumaki yanked him up by the hair so they were eye to eye. He watched Naruto go through a chain of hand signs before he, Kabuto, was slapped with an open palm in his chest. The newest sensation felt like a small tug, something pulling him to the ground. "The jutsu I just performed, it's a Jiten technique I haven't named yet, but you're going to be pulled toward the core of the planet. Now luckily for you, you merge with the earth, so it isn't that different from Doton techniques that allow underground movement. The difference, however, is that you have no control over how far and how fast you sink. There is also the reality the jutsu will run out of chakra eventually, and then you will be crushed instantly." As Kabuto was forcibly lowered into his final resting place, he could barely form a coherent thought. Knowing he was going to die but experiencing it so slowly was peeling away the layers of his sanity. He tried to scream but felt a strong hand grip his jaw, painfully. "I've taken your life, Kabuto, do not give me your dignity as well," the Uzumaki advised. Even as slowly as the words came out, Kabuto could still see the value of them. No, he would not give this boy his dignity. While fast for them, for Kabuto finally being subterranean took a lifetime. He did not know how far he sank, could not tell how deeply the insect had burrowed into his skull, but when the jutsu finally ended he welcomed death, the pressure of the interior levels of the planet crushing him instantly. Sometime after their successful assassination, the real Naruto arrived, having ended his jutsu and dispelling the clone. "Jiraiya is on his way," he explained. "Where is Kabuto?" Jiraiya asked, but there was a clear demand in his tone. "Who's that?" Shika asked. "That medic that wished he was Orochi-chan's cuckold," Naruto explained before remembering his manners. "Hi, Granny and Grandpa Sage," he called out as he waved. "Hi, Naruto-chan," Shima responded while also waving. "He sounds like a bitch boy. We don't associate with them," Shino explained, getting back to the topic at hand. "Why? Well, that should be self-evident. Are you three having fun? Because pretty soon there's going to be several squads of ANBU here to take you into custody, and they won't be nice about it. I'd imagine they'd be a little mannerable, as I can get rude, too." "Really, Naruto? How's the headache? You probably couldn't fight a wet paper bag," Jiraiya challenged. "Don't start talking slick because you're in sage mode, shitty pervert," Naruto warned. "Naruto-chan, language! You are a proud toad summoner and will comport yourself thusly," Shima lambasted. "That'd carry more weight if the boy wasn't right about Jiraiya's perversions," Fukasaku observed. "He's a lost cause, but Naruto-chan can still be set straight. Minato-chan never used bad language." As the two toads bickered, much to Jiraiya's embarrassment, Shino leaned over to Naruto and said, "She is aware your father was the greatest mass murderer the shinobi villages have ever produced, yes?" "I'm sure she's heard, Shino," Naruto said dryly. "Then why dash? It's not even worth trying to explain. I've just learned to accept it." As the most relaxed standoff in history continued, the surrounded forests were filled with a series of swooshes and gently ruffled trees. The ANBU had arrived and hurriedly surrounded Team Kurenai, weapons drawn. Naruto, looking down and holding his head, asked Chika, "How many you count?" "At least 24, wouldn't be surprised if it were double that." "Man, we should kick their asses just because," Naruto said casually, as if the presence of the village's elite forces were of no great concern. "Do not, I repeat, do not choose right now to show how gallingly troublesome you can be, Naruto. What crawled up your butt, Shika?" I didn't say I was going to fight them. I just said we should. He's been taking a lot of cold showers, he finds them to be a drag. Shino explained. Naruto laughed in return. Oh, I wouldn't know. I hate both you bastards, Shika said, getting even Shino to chuckle. The scene confused the ANBU, none of them used to being treated like non-factors, especially in this larger group. The boys made a show of surrendering, especially the son of the Ondaime, as if he were doing them the favor. The boys continued to converse as they traveled in a leisurely pace under a, once again, cloudless sky. Darui had been in Iwa for several days. He made no progress, that Setsukage wanting to speak about everything but the reason for the Kumo Nin's visit. Now, he was headed to a rock garden, hopefully, to start their talks in earnest. He moved silently across the gravelly walkways, it not even requiring effort. As he trudged along, he eventually spotted Inoki sitting by a cliff. Darui joined him, making sure to make his presence known. Darui-san, thank you for joining me, Inoki greeted. Thank you for having me, Inoki-sama, Darui responded. Despite what your time here may indicate, I do tend to prefer getting to the point of things. I won't apologize for giving you the runaround as I needed to know what kind of man you are. You see, after his abrupt exit from Suna, no sitting Kage will ally with I. Sure, none of us sincerely believed he fled in fear, but that is the perception and it is one that benefits us all. Forgive my bluntness, Inoki-sama, but if the answer was going to be no, then why the games? Because I would have lost his temper, blustered and threatened. Even with an inferior hand, he projects strength as if the world will cower as a result. You remain patient and focused. That's good to know for the time ahead. Times ahead? Darui questioned. I has made war an inevitability. If for no other reason than to reclaim your Jinchuriki and Kumo's loss of reputation. Add to that, Tsunade is not Hiruzen and won't extend herself as far for the sake of peace. No, war is coming and I am confident Kumo cannot win, though I doubt that's news to you. Even if your goal is to kill much of the new generation, how many will you sacrifice to do so? How many of your future will you jeopardize just to hobble Konoha's own? Darui remained silent. He didn't disagree with the protector of Iwa and felt no need to mount a hollow defense. So, ice war is inevitable. Unless it isn't. You have one chance to avoid this, Darui-san, but I do not know if you have it in you to do so. And what is this path that is clear to only you, Inoki-sama? Iwa will not ally with Raikage-I, that is the way it must be. But I would enter a partnership with Raikage Darui, Inoki explained. He saw the Kumo Jounin have no outward reaction, but that didn't surprise him. He'd taken the man's measure, and did not find him wanting. Inoki turned to leave him, saying, I'll leave you here to think about that. As he departed, Darui would stay there for several hours before returning to his room.